deep in the classified bowels of Starbase 375. Section 31 operatives had been conducting experiments they would never report to Starfleet Command. The Dominion War had ended 6 months prior, leaving the Federation bloodied but intact. Some within the intelligence community believed the next existential threat required more than diplomatic solutions. They needed weapons. They needed power. The experiment was simple in theory. Harness exotic energy signatures detected in subspace anomalies near the Bajoran wormhole. Energy readings that defied conventional physics. Energy that felt wrong. The lead scientist, Dr. Vasquez, had christened it Argent Radiation, based on its peculiar spectroscopic signature. What they didn't understand was that they weren't studying a new power source. They were knocking on hell's door. When the containment field collapsed, reality screamed. The rift tore open not with the gentle shimmer of a transporter beam or the controlled vortex of a wormhole, but with the violence of a dimension being murdered. Crimson light flooded the laboratory, carrying with it a heat that overloaded environmental controls instantly. Consoles exploded, bulkheads warped, and through that impossible wound in space-time, something emerged. Not the demons Section 31 had inadvertently invited. Not yet. Something that hunted demons. The Doomslayer crashed onto the deck plating with enough force to crater the reinforced uranium. Alarms shrieked across all frequencies. Emergency force fields snapped into place around the laboratory section containing the breach, or trying to. Through the acrid smoke and scattered fires, Section 31 security personnel raised their phaser rifles with trembling hands. What they saw defied easy categorization. The figure stood slowly, 7 feet of armor-clad nightmare. The Praetor's suit was a masterwork of technology that shouldn't exist. Bronze-green plating etched with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Powered servo joints that hummed with barely contained violence, and a helmet visor that glowed with predatory green light. Weapon systems covered nearly every surface. A shoulder-mounted plasma launcher, a wrist blade that gleamed with fresh blood from battles in another universe, and in his hands, a weapon Section 31 sensors couldn't properly classify. It registered as part firearm, part directed energy weapon, part something entirely outside Federation physics. The super shotgun. Freeze! Starfleet security. The command came from Lieutenant Commander Reeves, a veteran of the Dominion War who'd seen Jem'Hadar soldiers charge through weapons fire without flinching. His voice was steady, professional. His hands were not. The armored figure's head turned toward him with mechanical precision. Behind that visor, no expression, no communication, no indication of recognition or understanding. Just assessment. The Doomslayer's HUD came online, analyzing his surroundings with brutal efficiency. Unknown technology. Unknown location, unknown life forms. Weapon signatures detected. Low energy output. Non-demonic origin. Threat level. Minimal. The Praetor suit's translation protocols attempted to parse the strange language these beings spoke, cross-referencing linguistic patterns against its vast database of human dialects from his own reality. A match appeared. English derivative. Late information age patterns. He understood them. They had weapons pointed at him. I said freeze. Put down your weapons and... The Slayer moved. To Lieutenant Commander Reeves and his security team, the armored warrior simply vanished. One moment he stood in the center of the laboratory, the next he was among them. Superhuman speed combined with the Praetor suit's enhanced mobility systems made him less a man and more a ballistic missile with intent. The first security officer went down with a single backhand that crumpled his phaser rifle like aluminum foil and sent him flying into a bulkhead. The second managed to fire. An orange phaser beam lanced out on heavy stun setting, enough energy to drop a Klingon warrior. It splashed harmlessly against the Praetor suit's energy shielding, absorbed and dispersed before it could even scorch the armor. The Slayer's fist followed through, punching through the officer's tactical vest and the body armor beneath like they were tissue paper. Not a killing blow. He'd pulled it at the last instant, but devastating enough to shatter ribs and collapse a lung. The man went down gasping. Reeves managed to adjust his phaser to maximum setting, the kill setting that Starfleet officers were trained to use only in the most desperate circumstances. He fired point blank at the warrior's head. The beam struck the helmet dead center, energy crackling across the Praetor suit's shields. For a moment, Reeves thought he saw the shield frequency fluctuate, saw the armor plating heat slightly under the sustained barrage. Then gauntleted fingers closed around his throat, lifting him off the deck with one hand. The Slayer stared at him through that emotionless visor, analyzing, calculating. The human in his grip was no demon, no corruption detected, no hell signature, just a soldier doing his duty in a place the Slayer didn't recognize. He threw Reeves aside, not gently, but not with lethal intent. The officer crashed into a science console and slumped, unconscious but breathing. 14 seconds. 14 seconds to neutralize an entire Section 31 security detachment without a single fatality. The Doomslayer stood amid the moaning, broken bodies and scanned his environment with growing frustration. This wasn't hell. This wasn't Mars. This wasn't anywhere he recognized. The technology was wrong. Too clean, too advanced in some ways, primitive in others. No Argent energy signatures, no demonic presence. No UAC corporate logos or desperate human survivors huddled in corners. Just these strange soldiers with their ineffective weapons and their attempts at communication. Behind him, the rift pulsed. Crimson light flickered, and for just a moment, the Slayer's motion tracker lit up with contacts he did recognize. Demonic biosignatures, faint but present, on the other side of that dimensional tear. His hand tightened on the super shotgun. Hell was here. Maybe not in full force yet, but it was coming. It always came. Dr. Vasquez, pressed against the far wall with a dislocated shoulder and 3 cracked ribs, watched in horror as the armored figure turned back toward the rift. Through the pain and shock, the scientist's mind still functioned with cold, analytical precision. They'd pulled something through, something that read as partially human on their bioscans, but fought like nothing in Federation records. Something that had weathered maximum setting phaser fire like a light breeze, and something that, judging by the way it stared at that rift, had unfinished business with whatever lay beyond. Computer, Vasquez gasped into her comm badge. Initiate Priority 1 transmission to Starfleet Command. Authorization Vasquez Omega 31. We have a situation. The Doomslayer didn't stop her, didn't even acknowledge her. His entire focus remained on that crimson wound in reality, and the growing demonic presence he could feel building on the other side. In this strange new universe, one truth remained constant. Hell would come, and when it did, he would be ready. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together. The Starbase's emergency klaxons began to wail as Section 31's containment protocols failed. Through subspace channels, distress calls raced toward the nearest Starfleet vessels. The USS Enterprise E, captained by Jean-Luc Picard, received the transmission approximately 4.3 minutes later while conducting a diplomatic mission in the Calandra sector. First contact protocols were about to fail in ways Starfleet had never imagined. The USS Enterprise E dropped out of warp 3 hours later, her hull still bearing scorch marks from the Dominion War's final battles. Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge, reading the situation report with growing concern. Starbase 375 had gone to maximum alert. 14 security personnel hospitalized. An unauthorized dimensional experiment had apparently breached something, and now they had an unidentified hostile loose in the station. Unidentified hostile was Federation bureaucratic language that covered everything from confused aliens to rogue holograms. Picard had dealt with both. But something about this report troubled him. The clinical detachment in Dr. Vasquez's voice when she described their intruder as beyond conventional threat assessment parameters. "Mr. Worf," Picard said, turning to his Klingon security chief, "what's the status of Starbase security?" Worf's expression was grim, even by Klingon standards. "Captain, they have evacuated 3 entire decks. The intruder has not pursued or attempted to escape. He remains in Laboratory 7, near the dimensional rift. Starbase personnel report he is waiting. Waiting for what? Unknown. Attempts at communication have failed. He does not respond to hails. Universal Translator registers his language as Earth English, but he does not speak." Commander William Riker leaned forward from his position. "A human? From where?" "We've accounted for all Federation citizens in this sector." "Not human," Worf corrected. "Humanoid. Bioscans are inconsistent. The armor he wears interferes with our sensors, but medical estimates suggest enhanced physiology. Strength and durability far exceeding human or Klingon norms. His weapons." Worf paused, a note of what might have been respect entering his voice. "His weapons are devastating. Projectile-based and energy-based systems integrated into personal combat loadout. Nothing in our database matches the design." Picard clasped his hands behind his back, a gesture his crew recognized as him entering diplomatic mode. "Then we'll attempt to establish peaceful contact. This individual may be as confused and displaced as we are concerned. Number 1, Mr. Worf, you're with me. Commander Data, you have the con." Data's positronic brain processed the captain's order in microseconds. "Captain, I would advise caution. The intruder's combat efficiency suggests military conditioning beyond Starfleet or Klingon special operations parameters." "Noted, Mr. Data. But until he demonstrates hostile intent toward non-combatants, we will proceed under first contact protocols." 20 minutes later, Picard, Riker, and Worf materialized in a secured corridor 300 meters from Laboratory 7. The Starbase felt wrong. Emergency lighting cast everything in red, and the usual ambient hum of Federation technology was punctuated by the occasional groan of stressed bulkheads. Damage control teams worked frantically to repair systems the dimensional breach had damaged, their faces reflecting barely controlled fear. "Captain Picard?" A woman approached, her arm in a medical brace. Dr. Vasquez looked like she'd aged a decade in 3 hours. "I'm the lead researcher on the project that caused this." "Doctor?" Picard's voice carried no judgment, only steady authority. "What exactly were you researching?" "Exotic energy signatures we detected near the Bajoran wormhole. We thought..." She swallowed hard. "We thought we were studying a potential new power source, something to help rebuild after the war. Instead, we opened a door to somewhere else, somewhere terrible." "And the individual who came through?" "He's not from there, Captain. He's something that was fighting what's on the other side. The energy readings we detected, argent radiation, we called it. It's everywhere on the other side of that rift. And there are things moving, waiting. Our sensors can barely process what they're detecting, but the shapes, the biosignatures." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Captain, I don't think we opened a door to another dimension. I think we opened a door to hell. Picard absorbed this with the calm of a man who'd encountered Q, the Borg, and countless impossibilities. Hell is a theological concept, Doctor, not a... Tell that to him. They rounded the corner to Laboratory 7, and Picard saw him for the first time. The Doomslayer stood motionless before the rift, a statue carved from violence and determination. His armor caught the crimson light, making him appear as though he'd been forged in the same fires that burned beyond that dimensional tear. Weapons bristled from his frame. Picard counted at least 6 distinct systems, each one clearly designed to inflict maximum damage. The super shotgun was mag-locked to his back now, replaced by some kind of rotary weapon system that his tactical officer's instincts screamed was heavy ordnance. "He hasn't moved in 2 hours," Vasquez whispered. "Just stands there, watching, waiting." Worf's hand drifted toward his phaser. Picard noticed and gave a subtle shake of his head. Instead, the captain stepped forward, hands visible and open in the universal gesture of peaceful intent. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. We mean you no harm. We'd like to help you." No response, not even a twitch of acknowledgement. Picard continued, modulating his voice to carry calm authority. "We understand you may be displaced, possibly from another time or dimension. The Federation has extensive experience with such phenomena. If you'll lower your weapons and allow us to..." The Slayer's head turned, slowly, deliberately. That glowing visor fixed on Picard with an intensity that made the seasoned captain suppress an instinctive step backward. Behind that helmet, the Doomslayer assessed this new arrival. Older human, no visible weapons. Calm demeanor, authority figure. 2 others, one human, one definitely not. Human, the non-human registered as warrior class. Threat assessment, moderate for the Klingon, minimal for the others. But that wasn't what made him turn. Behind them, down the corridor, the Slayer's motion tracker pinged, multiple contacts, moving fast. His HUD analysis kicked in instantly. Bipedal, roughly human-sized, heat signatures spiking far above normal human ranges, movement patterns aggressive and predatory. The rift was expanding. He'd felt it for the past hour, watching the dimensional barrier weaken as whatever Section 31 had done continued to destabilize reality in this location. Hell was coming through. Not in force yet, just scouts. But scouts meant the invasion had begun. The Doomslayer's hand moved to his weapon harness with practiced efficiency, pulling free the heavy assault rifle. The motion was so smooth, so economical, that Picard barely registered it before the warrior was moving past them, his focus locked on something behind the Enterprise crew. "Stand. Down!" Worf barked, phaser raised. "I said..." Then they heard the screaming. It started from the direction of the damage control teams, high-pitched, terrified shrieks that cut off with wet, tearing sounds. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut automatically, but something on the other side was forcing them open, the reinforced duranium peeling back like paper. Through the widening gaps, Picard caught glimpses of shapes that his mind struggled to process. They were vaguely humanoid, but wrong in every proportion. Arms too long, tipped with claws that glowed with the same crimson energy as the rift. Skin that wasn't skin, but something between flesh and stone. Cracked and seeping fire from within. Eyes that burned with mindless hunger. Teeth, far too many teeth, arranged in jaws that opened wider than any natural creatures should. Imps. In the Doomslayer's universe, they were the lowest tier of Hell's infantry. Weak, numerous, and vicious. A trained soldier could handle 1, maybe 2, with the right equipment. The Starbase's sensors registered 8 contacts. 9, 12, 15. The Doomslayer didn't break stride. The heavy assault rifle barked, not the clean particle beam of a phaser, but the brutal staccato of high-velocity ballistic rounds mixed with plasma-tipped munitions. The sound was deafening in the enclosed corridor, a thunderous percussion that made Picard's ears ring even through the distance. The lead imp's head exploded in a shower of gore and fire. The second took 3 round center mass and went down thrashing. The third tried to dodge, superhuman reflexes letting it cling to the bulkhead and leap toward the Slayer in a pounce that would have eviscerated any normal opponent. The Slayer caught it mid-air with his offhand. For a moment, the imp struggled in his grip, claws scrabbling uselessly against the Praetor suit's armor. Then gauntleted fingers tightened, and the demon's skull crumpled like an overripe fruit. The Slayer threw the corpse aside without looking and continued firing, each burst precise and economical. 2 more imps down. 3. Worf stared, his phaser hanging forgotten at his side. He'd fought in the Dominion War. He'd faced Jem'Hadar in close combat, beings bred for warfare and enhanced with Ketracel White. He'd seen Klingon berserkers in the throes of battle fury. This was different. This was violence as art form. The armored warrior moved through the demons like they were standing still, anticipating their attacks before they launched, placing each shot with perfect efficiency. An imp lunged from above. The Slayer pivoted and unloaded a burst that caught it in midair and pinned its corpse to the ceiling. 2 more tried to flank. He produced a weapon Worf hadn't seen before, some kind of energy blade mounted on his gauntlet, and bisected both in a single horizontal slash. My God, Riker breathed. The entire engagement lasted 18 seconds. 15 demons lay dead or dying in the corridor, their bodies already beginning to dissolve into ash and sulfur. The Doomslayer stood amid the carnage, his armor spattered with ichor that steamed and evaporated on contact with the Praetor suit's surface. His breathing, the first sound they'd heard him make, came steady and controlled through the helmet's respirator. Not winded, not shaken, just ready. He turned back toward them, and Picard saw something in that glowing visor. Not threat, not aggression, just a simple, terrible certainty. I told you so. Sir, Worf said quietly, I recommend we reconsider our approach. Picard nodded slowly, his diplomatic instincts warring with the evidence before him. This warrior had just saved their lives, and done so with a level of violence that would horrify every principle the Federation stood for. But those creatures, those demons as Dr. Vasquez had called them, were real. The rift was real. And if this armored warrior's reaction was any indication, this was only the beginning. Agreed, Picard said. But first, we need to understand what we're dealing with, and we need to close that rift before anything else comes through. The Doomslayer's visor glowed brighter for just a moment, his HUD registering a massive energy spike from the rift behind them. His motion tracker lit up like a Christmas tree. 20 contacts, 40, 60. The scouts had been just that, scouts. Now hell was sending its armies. He checked his ammunition counter. 37%. His Argent energy reserves were at 41% without fresh demon kills to replenish them. The BFG 9000 was fully charged, but limited to 3 shots before he'd need to find a power source for recharge. In his own universe, these numbers would concern him. In this universe, surrounded by people with their stun weapons and diplomatic protocols, these numbers were catastrophic. The rift erupted. Hell's invasion of the Federation had begun. The rift didn't just expand, it vomited nightmares into reality. They came in waves, a tide of corruption that turned the sterile Federation corridors into abattoir halls. Imps poured through by the dozens, their claws tearing through bulkheads like cloth. Behind them came something larger, something that made the Starbase's structural integrity field scream warnings across every console. Hell Knights, 8 feet of armored demonic muscle, wreathed in green flame, with horns that scraped against the ceiling and fists that could punch through starship hulls. Starbase 375's automated defense systems opened fire. Phaser emplacements tracked and fired, orange beams lancing through the chaos. Several imps collapsed, their bodies flash-burned by the particle weapons. But the Hell Knights barely noticed, their natural armor and infernal resistance shrugging off stun settings and weathering kill settings with nothing more than superficial burns. The Doomslayer didn't wait for Picard's orders, didn't ask permission, didn't coordinate with Starfleet tactical protocols. He simply switched his heavy assault rifle to micro-missile mode and charged directly into the demonic horde. "Belay that!" Worf shouted on instinct, but his words died as he watched what unfolded. The first Hell Knight swung a massive fist in an overhead slam that would have cratered the deck plating. The Slayer sidestepped with inhuman precision, his Praetor suit's mobility systems making him impossibly agile despite the armor's bulk. As the demon's fist impacted where he'd been standing, the Slayer was already moving, launching himself onto the Hell Knight's arm and running up it like a ramp. 3 micro-missiles fired point-blank into the demon's face, detonating in a starburst of plasma and shrapnel that blew the creature's head apart. He didn't stop to watch it fall. An imp leaped at him from the left. He caught it by the throat mid-lunge, pivoted, and used the demon's own momentum to hurl it into 2 more. The super shotgun came off his back in one smooth motion. 2 blasts. 3 imps reduced to burning chunks. He was already moving before their bodies hit the ground, a perpetual motion machine of violence flowing from target to target with brutal efficiency. "Captain?" Riker said, his voice tight with controlled shock. "Our weapons are barely slowing them down. His are evaporating them." Picard watched, his centuries of Starfleet training warring with the evidence before him. The Federation built its entire philosophy on the premise that violence was a last resort, that understanding and diplomacy could solve any conflict. But these creatures weren't responding to hails or universal translator protocols. They were mindless killing machines, and the only language they understood was being spoken fluently by the armored warrior carving through their ranks. "Mr. Worf?" Picard said quietly. "Assessment." Worf's warrior instincts overrode his shock. 73 hostiles detected on sensors. The intruder has eliminated 19 in the past 40 seconds. His weapons use a combination of kinetic and plasma technologies I've never seen. His combat efficiency is... The Klingon paused, searching for adequate words. "Captain, I have fought Jem'Hadar, Borg drones, and Klingon champions. This warrior would defeat all of them simultaneously." A scream echoed from a side corridor. Human, terrified, cut short. The Slayer's head snapped toward the sound, his HUD tagging 3 imp signatures and 1 human life sign, fading. He was moving before conscious thought, his trajectory taking him past Picard's group and into the darkness. "Follow him," Picard ordered. "If there are survivors, we need to..." Worf was already moving, his batleth drawn, Riker close behind with phaser raised. Picard followed, his command training screaming that this was tactically unsound, but his moral code demanding he not abandon anyone to those creatures. They found the Slayer, 30 meters down the corridor, standing over the body of a dead ensign. The young woman's uniform was shredded, her final expression one of terror. Around her corpse lay 4 imps, each one brutally dismembered. The Doomslayer stood perfectly still, his visor fixed on the dead officer. In his universe, he'd failed to save countless humans. Every civilian death was a wound that never healed. fuel for the rage that kept him fighting across eons. This woman, this stranger in a universe not his own, had died while he'd been analyzing threats instead of acting instantly. It wouldn't happen again. His motion tracker pinged. More contacts, closing from multiple directions. The demons were spreading through the starbase like cancer, exploiting every corridor and Jeffrey's tube. Standard Federation defensive doctrine would be to fall back to defensible positions, establish containment fields, evacuate civilians to designated safe zones. The Slayer had a better idea. Kill everything between him and the rift, then go through it and kill everything on the other side until nothing was left to come through. He started moving again, faster now, his path a straight line toward the densest concentration of demonic biosignatures. Picard's away team struggled to keep pace, watching as the warrior ahead of them transformed the starbase into a war zone. An imp dropped from a ceiling vent. The Slayer's gauntlet blade intercepted it, impaling the demon through the torso and slamming it into the bulkhead hard enough to leave an impact crater. A Hell Knight charged from a side passage. The Slayer planted his feet and met the charge head-on, catching the demon's fist with one hand, the impact sending shockwaves through the deck plating, then drove his shoulder-mounted plasma launcher into the creature's chest and fired. The Hell Knight's torso exploded from the inside out. He's not just fighting them, Riker observed, watching the carnage with horrified fascination. He's hunting them. No, Worf corrected, his tone carrying reluctant respect. They're hunting us. He's exterminating them. The distinction was lost on no one. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met and found themselves facing a scene from nightmares. 15 demons had cornered a group of 37 Starbase personnel. Scientists, engineers, medical staff, none of them combat trained. The civilians had jury-rigged a makeshift barricade from overturned tables and severed bulkhead panels, and were firing hand phasers in desperate, uncoordinated volleys. It wasn't working. The demons were systematically dismantling their defenses, one section at a time. "We need to coordinate," Picard started. "Establish a crossfire pattern, draw them away from the civilians." The Doomslayer wasn't listening. He was already in motion, and this time, Picard witnessed something that would haunt his diplomatic sensibilities for years. The warrior pulled a weapon from his back, something massive and green, with a crystalline core that pulsed with barely contained energy. The BFG 9000. He aimed it down the corridor toward the demon cluster and fired. The resulting explosion of emerald plasma was less a weapon discharge and more a localized apocalypse. The main projectile struck the center of the demon formation and detonated. But that was just the beginning. Tendrils of argent energy arced out in every direction, each one seeking demonic biosignatures with malevolent intelligence. The tendrils struck imps and Hell Knights indiscriminately, burning through their bodies from the inside out. Demons shrieked, sounds that no human throat could produce, as they were reduced to ash and bone in seconds. When the light cleared, 15 demons had been erased from existence. The corridor walls glowed red-hot. The air stank of ozone and sulfur. And the Doomslayer was already moving forward, not even glancing at the weapon's kill count. Behind the barricade, 37. Civilians stared in shock. Several were crying. A few looked like they might be sick. But they were alive. "Everyone, move!" Worf barked, his command voice cutting through their stupor. "Back to the main evacuation corridor, now!" They moved, stumbling over each other in their haste to escape. As they passed the Slayer, some couldn't help but stare at him. This armored savior who had just casually unleashed destruction that outstripped anything in Starfleet's conventional arsenal. A few whispered thanks. Most were too terrified to speak. The warrior didn't acknowledge any of them. His focus remained locked on the rift ahead, where his sensors detected the energy signature building toward critical mass. "Captain," came Data's voice over Picard's comm badge. "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the dimensional rift. If my calculations are correct, something significantly larger is attempting to come through." "Define significantly larger, Commander." "Approximately 30 meters in length. Mass readings comparable to a Type 6 shuttlecraft. Biosigns indicate extreme thermal output and aggressive neural patterns. Captain, I believe the term from Dr. Vasquez's initial report would be a greater demon." The Doomslayer's HUD confirmed it. Baron of Hell, heavy class demon, high durability, capable of throwing plasma balls that could melt starship bulkheads. In his universe, a Baron was a serious threat that required heavy ordnance and tactical positioning to defeat. In this universe, where the locals were still trying to stun demons with particle beams, a Baron would be a massacre. He checked his weapon systems. BFG charged, 62%, 2 shots remaining. Heavy assault rifle ammunition, 28%. Super shotgun, full. Chainsaw fuel, 75%. Plasma rifle, 93%. His Argent energy reserves had climbed to 61% from all the demon kills. The Praetor suit's absorption systems working exactly as designed. Good. He'd need every advantage. The rift pulsed, expanding to 3 times its original diameter. Reality buckled around its edges, creating spatial distortions that made the corridor seem to twist in impossible directions. Through the crimson light, a massive shape became visible, horned, muscled, wreathed in green hellfire. The Baron of Hell forced its way through the dimensional barrier, its roar shaking the entire Starbase section. Emergency bulkheads cracked, power conduits exploded. The creature's presence alone was enough to destabilize local physics. It saw the Doomslayer immediately. Recognition flashed in those burning eyes, not of this specific warrior, but of what he represented. Every demon in hell knew the legend. The Doomslayer, the unchained predator, the being who had carved through the armies of hell for eons, who had killed the Titan, who had made demons fear the dark. The Baron roared challenge and hurled a plasma ball the size of a photon torpedo. The Slayer dodged, the superhuman reflexes of the Praetor suit letting him clear the blast radius by centimeters. The plasma ball struck the bulkhead behind him and melted through 3 decks, creating a gaping hole that vented atmosphere into space. Emergency force fields snapped into place, containing the breach, but the message was clear. This demon could destroy the Starbase section by section. "All personnel, fall back," Picard ordered into his comm badge, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Evacuate this section immediately." The Doomslayer charged forward. Worf watched in disbelief as the warrior sprinted directly at a creature that outweighed him 5-1, moving with reckless aggression that any tactical officer would call suicidal. The Baron swung a massive fist. The Slayer slid beneath it, his armor's mobility systems letting him execute a maneuver that should have been impossible in full combat gear. He came up inside the demon's guard, pressed the super shotgun against its abdomen, and fired both barrels. The blast tore a crater in the Baron's midsection, green blood spraying across the corridor. The demon howled and backhanded the Slayer, the impact sending him flying into a bulkhead hard enough to crack the reinforced material. Lesser armor would have crumpled. Lesser beings would have died. The Doomslayer stood up, checked his HUD for damage, minor shield depletion, systems nominal, and charged again. "Insane," Riker muttered. "He's absolutely insane." "No," Worf said quietly, unable to look away. "He's glorious." The battle that followed was brutal poetry. The Baron threw plasma, clawed, stomped, and raged with all the fury of hell itself. The Slayer dodged, weaved, fired, and struck with surgical precision, each attack calculated to inflict maximum damage. Micro-missiles peppered the demon's face. Plasma rifle bursts burned through its natural armor. The gauntlet blade opened deep wounds that leaked hellfire. But the Baron was adapting, its ancient intelligence recognizing patterns in the Slayer's attacks. It feinted with a claw swipe, then followed with a plasma ball when the Slayer dodged, a trap. The blast caught him center mass, the Argent energy overwhelming his shields and sending him crashing through a science console. Sparks flew, warning klaxons blared. The Praetor suit's systems struggled to compensate. Shield integrity, 41%. Armor breach, minor, ceiling. Argent reserves, 53% and dropping from regeneration demands. The Baron advanced, sensing victory, drawing back its fist for a finishing blow that would crush the Slayer into paste. The Doom Slayer's hand found the chainsaw. He triggered it as the Baron's fist descended, the spinning teeth catching the demon's wrist and tearing through flesh and bone with brutal efficiency. The Baron's roar turned into a shriek as the chainsaw severed its hand completely, green blood fountaining across the corridor. The Slayer pivoted, drove the weapon into the demon's torso, and held down the trigger. The chainsaw's Argent-infused teeth ripped through the Baron's chest cavity, shredding organs and demonic anatomy with merciless efficiency. The Praetor suit's absorption systems went into overdrive, drinking in the Argent energy that poured from the dying demon. The Baron thrashed, trying to pull away, but the Slayer held firm, feeding on its death until the creature collapsed into a burning heap. His HUD updated. Argent reserves, 97%. All systems optimal. Threat eliminated. Behind him, Picard, Riker, and Worf stood in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something that violated every principle the Federation held dear. Savage, unrelenting violence executed with perfect efficiency. And yet, the Starbase section was saved. The civilians lived. The demon threat was contained. For now. The rift still pulsed behind them, smaller now but not closed. The Doom Slayer turned toward it, reloading his weapons with mechanical precision. His message was clear without words. One battle won, but the war had just begun. Picard's comm badge chirped. "Captain, this is Commander Data. The rift is destabilizing. If we can generate a coherent graviton pulse, we might be able to collapse it from this side." "Make it so, Commander. How long?" 18 minutes to configure the Starbase's deflector array. 18 minutes. The Slayer's motion tracker showed 43 demonic contacts still active in the station, with more attempting to push through the weakening rift. 18 minutes was an eternity, but it was the mission. Close the rift, stop the invasion, save humanity. Same as it ever was. The Doom Slayer checked his ammunition one more time and moved toward the next demonic signature. There was work to do. Captain Picard had negotiated with the Borg. He'd debated philosophy with Q. He'd convinced Klingons to embrace peace and Romulans to consider détente. In his decades of command, he'd refined diplomacy into an art form, believing that reason and mutual understanding could bridge any divide. None of that prepared him for trying to coordinate with a warrior who communicated exclusively through violence. "We need a strategy," Picard said, following the Slayer through corridors still smoking from demonic incursions. Bodies, human and demon alike, littered their path. "Commander Data is working to close the rift, but we need 18 minutes. If we can establish a defensive perimeter, coordinate our fire patterns with your weapons." The Doom Slayer stopped abruptly. His visor turned toward Picard, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, he made a gesture. He pointed at Picard, then at a side corridor leading toward the evacuation routes. The message was unmistakable. "Get your people to safety." Then he pointed at himself and toward the densest cluster of demonic signatures on his HUD. The second message was equally clear. "I'll handle this." "That's not acceptable," Picard said, his diplomatic calm fraying at the edges. "We don't abandon people in hostile situations. Starfleet doesn't work that way. If you just communicate with us, explain your capabilities, we could—" A sound cut him off. Not a demon roar or weapons fire, but something worse. The wet tearing noise of claws through flesh, followed by gurgling screams. The Slayer's motion tracker had already tagged the signatures. 7 imps, 2 Hell Knights, converging on a group of stranded maintenance workers 3 corridors away. The Slayer didn't debate, didn't explain. He simply moved, his armored form disappearing around a corner at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for something that size. Picard, Riker, and Worf exchanged glances and followed, though by the time they arrived, the engagement was already over. 6 maintenance workers huddled in a corner, covered in demon ichor but alive. Around them lay 9 demon corpses in various states of dismemberment. The Slayer was already moving to the next threat, not waiting for thanks or acknowledgement. The maintenance workers stared after him with expressions mixing terror and awe. "He saved us," one whispered. "But the way he fights? What is he?" Worf helped them to their feet, his Klingon pragmatism cutting through the shock. "He is a warrior. Everything else is irrelevant. Now move before more demons arrive." As the civilians fled towards safety, Picard's comm badge chirped again. This time it was Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge, the Enterprise's chief engineer, his voice tight with stress. "Captain, we've got a problem. The dimensional rift. It's not just pulling demons through. It's pulling through energy signatures that are corrupting the Starbase's systems. I've got power conduits overloading on decks 7 through 12. Life support is failing in sections we haven't even evacuated yet. And something's happening to the computer core. It's processing commands that no one input, like the system is being infected." Picard's strategic mind immediately grasped the implications. "Infected by what?" "Hell, Captain." Dr. Vasquez's voice cut in, having patched into the comm channel. "That's the only word for it. The Argent energy isn't just demonic power, it's corrupting influence given form. It rewrites matter at the quantum level, transforming it into something compatible with Hell's physics. If it reaches critical mass, the entire Starbase could become a gateway. Not just a rift, but a permanent bridge between dimensions." "How long until critical mass?" "At current progression rates? Maybe 6 hours. But Captain, that's assuming the rift doesn't expand further. Every demon that comes through weakens the barrier. And if something really powerful forces its way across..." She didn't need to finish. Picard understood threat assessment well enough. They were fighting a war on 2 fronts: the physical demonic incursion and a metaphysical corruption spreading through the Starbase's infrastructure like cancer. "Commander data," Picard said. "Update on the graviton pulse." 14 minutes, Captain. However, I must note that closing the rift will not eliminate the Argent corruption already present. We would need to purge every contaminated system, a process that could take days we do not have. The Doomslayer's helmet speakers crackled, the first sound from him that wasn't weapons fire or combat impact. His translation protocols had been processing their conversation, and his Praetor Suit's AI had reached a conclusion. He couldn't explain it in words they'd understand, couldn't describe the Argent energy mechanics he'd studied across eons of fighting Hell's forces. But he could show them. He turned back toward the group and, for the first time, deliberately, engaged his suit's holographic interface. The projection flickered to life above his gauntlet. Crude by Praetor Suit standards, advanced beyond anything Federation technology could produce naturally. It showed a schematic: the Starbase, the rift, the spreading corruption rendered in crimson data streams. Then it showed a solution. A single point marked in green, the rift's origin. Drive enough concentrated argent energy back through the rift in a violent enough discharge, and the dimensional membrane would snap closed like an elastic band. The corruption wouldn't spread further. Whatever remained could be isolated and purged. The catch was clear even in holographic form. Someone had to take the argent energy to the rift manually. Someone had to survive the demonic forces swarming that location. And someone had to trigger a discharge powerful enough to collapse dimensional barriers. The Slayer tapped his chest plate. The message was clear. I'm going in. Absolutely not, Picard said immediately. We don't send anyone into suicide missions. There has to be another way. If we reinforce the containment fields, evacuate to minimum safe distance, we can remotely trigger. The Slayer's visor tilted slightly, and Picard realized with uncomfortable certainty that the warrior was judging him. Not with malice, but with the cold assessment of someone who'd seen too many people die while others debated optimal solutions. Worf stepped forward. Captain, he is right. Mr. Worf. Captain, I know this troubles you. It troubles me as well. The Klingon's hand rested on his batleth. But I am a warrior. I recognize what he is doing. He is not committing suicide. He is executing a tactical assault against overwhelming odds, something he has clearly done many times before and survived. Our attempts to coordinate with him only slow him down. That's not how Starfleet operates, Riker interjected. We work as teams. We support each other. We don't send lone wolves into combat zones. The Slayer's motion tracker suddenly flared. 63 new contacts, emerging from the rift in a coordinated wave. His combat protocols kicked into high alert. This wasn't random spawning anymore. Hell's forces were organizing, which meant something intelligent was directing them from the other side. Something that recognized the threat he represented and was committing resources to eliminate him. Good. The more they focused on him, the fewer threatened civilians. He moved before anyone could object, his trajectory taking him directly toward Laboratory 7 and the rift at its heart. Picard shouted something behind him. Orders, objections, appeals to reason. The Slayer didn't slow down. Reason was a luxury for universes that hadn't met hell. This universe had met hell. Now it would learn what that meant. The corridor leading to the laboratory was a war zone. Starbase security had tried to establish a defensive line here, and their bodies told the story of how well that had gone. Phaser rifles lay scattered among the corpses, both human and demon. The walls were scorched black from plasma impacts and clawed to shreds where demons had scaled them. Emergency force fields sparked and failed, unable to maintain integrity under sustained assault. The demons had fortified the position, not with technology, but with sheer numbers. Imps clung to every surface, their claws digging into bulkheads and ceiling panels. Hell Knights patrolled in pairs, their massive forms blocking the main corridor. And deeper in, visible through the haze of sulfur and burning electronics, something else waited. A mancubus. One of Hell's heavy weapons platforms. 12 feet of bloated demonic flesh with arm-mounted flamethrowers that could turn a corridor into an inferno in seconds. The Doomslayer assessed the kill zone with professional detachment. 60-plus hostiles in a confined space with limited cover and multiple firing angles. Perfect conditions for the enemy, suicidal for conventional assault. He'd faced worse before breakfast. The plasma rifle came off his back, its capacitors humming to full charge. He triggered the weapon's heat blast mode, a modification that overcharged the plasma cells temporarily, trading long-term efficiency for short-term devastation. Then he stepped into the corridor and opened fire. The plasma bolts struck with machine gun rapidity, each one a sphere of superheated ions that exploded on impact. Imps shrieked as the plasma burned through their bodies, their natural resistance overwhelmed by the sheer thermal output. A Hell Knight charged. The Slayer sidestepped, put 3 bolts into its knee joint, then finished it with a gauntlet blade through the skull as it stumbled. Another Hell Knight tried to flank. He didn't even look, his motion tracker feeding perfect targeting data that let him fire blind and still score headshots. The Manchibus opened fire, twin streams of hellfire washing down the corridor. The Ekabukoer Slayer dove behind a collapsed bulkhead section, the flames washing over his cover and heating the metal to glowing red. His HUD temperature warnings flared, but the Praetor suit's cooling systems compensated. He waited for the Mancubus to pause its stream. Demons still needed to breathe, even the heavy ones, then popped up and switched to the heavy assault rifle's micro-missile mode. 6 missiles streaked down the corridor, spiraling around obstacles and incoming imp bodies to strike the Mancubus's flame tanks. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, the demon's own weapons detonating and taking out every hostile within 15 meters. Burning chunks of demonic flesh rained across the corridor. The Slayer was already moving through the carnage, reloading on the run. Behind him, at the corridor junction, Picard's away team watched through borrowed security monitors. They'd lost direct visual when the Slayer outpaced them, but had patched into the Starbase's internal sensors to track his progress. What they saw defied tactical sense. "He's fighting through 63 hostiles," Riker said, his voice hollow. "Alone, in a reinforced enemy position, and he's winning." Data's android precision parsed the combat data streaming across his console. "Fascinating. His weapons fire follows optimal targeting algorithms I've only seen in Borg tactical protocols. Yet his movement patterns suggest organic intuition rather than programmed responses. He's predicting enemy actions 3 to 4 steps ahead." 4 steps? Worf watched a Hell Knight swing at where the Slayer had been 2 seconds prior, while the warrior himself appeared behind the demon and executed it with brutal efficiency. More like 6. Picard watched the carnage unfold with growing certainty that he was witnessing something the Federation had no context for. This wasn't a warrior fighting for survival or even victory. This was something pure, something almost primal, the perfect predator hunting in its natural element. The demons weren't his enemy in any conventional sense. They were prey. "Captain," Geordi's voice crackled over the comm. "The Argent corruption just spiked again. Something big is trying to come through the rift. Really big. I'm reading mass signatures comparable to a Miranda-class starship." On the security feed, the Slayer had reached Laboratory 7's entrance. The rift dominated the space, a wound in reality 15 meters wide now, pulsing with malevolent crimson light. Through its depths, shapes moved, massive, ancient, terrible. The intelligence directing Hell's forces was done with scouts and soldiers. It was sending a cyber demon, part organic demon, part technological nightmare. The cyber demon was Hell's answer to armored warfare. 20 meters tall, equipped with missile launchers and plasma weapons that could level city blocks. Its mere presence would destabilize the Starbase's structural integrity. The rift stretched wider, reality screaming as it accommodated something that size, forcing its way through dimensions. The Doom Slayer stood before the widening rift, weapons ready, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, he felt something approaching satisfaction. Hell had shown its hand. It was scared enough to commit capital assets. That meant he was winning. His HUD displayed weapon readouts. BFG charged at 94%, 3 shots available. Heavy assault rifle at full capacity, super shotgun loaded. Chainsaw fuel at 75%. Argent reserves at 97%. The cyber demon's mechanical roar echoed through dimensional barriers as it prepared to emerge. The Doomslayer checked his super shotgun one more time and waited. In his universe, killing a cyber demon was a legendary feat. In this universe, surrounded by people with stun guns and diplomatic protocols, it would send a message hell couldn't ignore. Wrong universe. Wrong warrior. You lose. The rift exploded outward as the cyber demon forced itself through, and the real battle began. The cyber demon's emergence shattered what remained of Laboratory 7's structural integrity. Its mechanical hoof crashed through the deck plating, crushing support beams like twigs. The creature stood nearly 20 meters tall, a grotesque fusion of demonic flesh and technological horror. One arm terminating in a massive rocket launcher, the other a cybernetic claw capable of crushing starship hulls. Its remaining organic eye burned with ancient hatred, while its cybernetic replacement scanned the environment with cold tactical precision. It saw the Doomslayer immediately. Recognition flashed across its corrupted neural pathways, not of this specific encounter, but of countless others across eons. In Hell's collective memory, the Slayer was legend and nightmare combined. The being who'd killed demons by the millions, who'd destroyed the Titan, who'd made Hell itself fear his presence. Every demon above fodder class knew his signature, knew the Praetor suit's distinctive energy, pattern. The cyber demon roared challenge, a sound that was part mechanical screech, part bestial fury. The rocket launcher swiveled, target acquisition systems locking onto the Slayer's position. 6 missiles streaked downward, their warheads packing enough explosive yield to crater a city block. The Doomslayer was already moving. His Praetor suit's mobility systems pushed him into a sprint that blurred his armored form, covering ground at speeds that made him nearly impossible to track. The missiles impacted where he'd been standing, the detonations tearing through deck plating and exposing the laboratory section below. Structural integrity alarms shrieked. Emergency bulkheads began slamming shut to contain the damage. The Slayer ignored all of it, his focus locked on the massive target ahead. He opened fire with a heavy assault rifle, micro-missiles streaming toward the cyber demon's eye cluster. The demon's point defense systems activated, automated plasma turrets emerging from shoulder-mounted hardpoints, tracking and destroying incoming projectiles with mechanical efficiency. Only 3 missiles penetrated the defensive screen, impacting against the creature's armored hide and scoring superficial damage. The cyber demon's response was immediate and overwhelming. Its rocket launcher fired in sustained volleys, transforming the laboratory into an apocalyptic kill zone. Explosions walked across the floor, each one powerful enough to vaporize anything caught in the blast radius. The Slayer dodged, weaved, and exploited every piece of cover, his combat protocols calculating trajectories and optimal movement paths in microseconds. But he couldn't dodge everything. A rocket clipped his shoulder, the detonation overwhelming his shields and sending him crashing through a bulkhead. His HUD flared warnings. Shield integrity at 23%, armor breach on right pauldron, minor systems damage. Pain receptors screamed information his brain processed and dismissed. The Praetor suit's auto-repair systems activated, nanomachines working to seal the breach. But regeneration took time he didn't have. The cyber demon advanced, each footfall shaking the deck. Its mechanical claw reached down, intending to crush the Slayer while he was vulnerable. The gauntleted hand closed around his torso, servo motors strong enough to crumple a Type 6 shuttlecraft beginning to compress. The Doomslayer triggered his wrist-mounted blade, driving it through the mechanical claw's hydraulic system. High-pressure fluid sprayed across the laboratory as the claw's grip loosened. He wrenched free, grabbed onto the damaged limb, and ran up the cyber demon's arm like it was a ramp. The demon tried to shake him off, but he was already moving, magnetic boot locks engaging to keep him attached to the creature's chassis. He reached the shoulder-mounted plasma turrets and drove his gauntlet blade into their targeting mechanisms. Sparks flew. The turrets seized up, their automated systems going haywire. The cyberdemon roared and tried to swat him away with its rocket launcher arm. The Slayer jumped, using the demon's own motion to launch himself higher, landing on the creature's back between its shoulder blades. From his elevated position, he could see the weak points. Every cyberdemon had them, remnants of the organic form merged with cybernetic components. Where flesh met metal, there were gaps in armor, access points where critical systems remained vulnerable. He pulled the super shotgun from his back and jammed both barrels into a seam in the creature's neck armor. Both barrels fired simultaneously, point-blank range. The blast tore through cables, severed hydraulic lines, and ruptured the cyberdemon's secondary neural cluster. The creature's movements became spastic, its targeting systems failing as its coordination centers took critical damage. It thrashed wildly, trying to dislodge the warrior clinging to its back. The Slayer held on, reloading the super shotgun with practiced efficiency, a skill honed over thousands of battles. He fired again, and again. Each blast drove deeper into the demon's infrastructure, expanding the wound, creating cascading systems failures. Green blood, more oil than organic matter, fountained from the gaping hole in the cyberdemon's neck. But it wasn't dead yet. Hell's heavy weapons platforms were designed to operate even with catastrophic damage, their demonic vitality keeping them fighting long past the point where conventional enemies would expire. The cyberdemon threw itself backward, slamming into the laboratory's rear wall hard enough to crack the reinforced bulkhead. The impact nearly dislodged the Slayer, but he held firm, his magnetic locks anchoring him to the creature's chassis. The demon tried again, this time throwing itself forward and rolling, attempting to crush him beneath its bulk. The Slayer released his grip at the last second, dropping free and rolling clear. He came up in a crouch, assessing damage. Shield integrity, 7%. Armor breaches, 3 locations, all minor. Argent reserves, 81% and holding. Ammunition, super shotgun at 50%, other weapons nominal. The cyberdemon struggled to rise, its damaged coordination systems making the effort clumsy. It was hurt, crippled even, but still dangerous. Its rocket launcher swiveled toward him again, preparing another volley despite the creature's compromised state. Time to end this. The Doomslayer's hand found the BFG 9000. The weapon came off his back with practiced ease, its crystalline core pulsing with barely contained argent energy. He took 2 seconds to aim, an eternity in combat, but the BFG demanded precision, and fired. The emerald sphere of plasma erupted from the barrel, streaking toward the cyberdemon with apocalyptic intent. The main projectile struck the creature's damaged neck, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the argent energy began its work. Tendrils of green lightning arced out from the impact site, each one seeking demonic biosignatures with malevolent intelligence. They tore through the cyberdemon's body, burning through flesh and metal indiscriminately, overloading every system simultaneously. The cyberdemon's death was spectacular. Its rocket launcher detonated, the remaining missiles cooking off in a chain reaction. Its plasma turrets exploded. The fusion of organic and mechanical ruptured, spilling burning components across the laboratory floor. The creature's final roar was cut short as its vocal systems melted. And then the massive body toppled forward, shaking the entire Starbase section with its impact. Silence fell. Not peaceful silence, but the eerie quiet that follows extreme violence. The Doomslayer stood amid the wreckage, his armor scored and smoking, but intact. His HUD updated, threat eliminated, argent reserves at 93% from absorbing the cyberdemon's death energy. The rift behind him pulsed weakly, its expansion halted now that Hell's assault had been repulsed. But not ended. His motion tracker still showed 41 demonic contacts scattered throughout the Starbase. The corruption in the station systems continued spreading. And on the other side of the rift, in Hell's domain, more demons waited, more threats, more battles. He checked his ammunition. BFG. 2 shots remaining. He'd need to make them count. My God. Riker's voice, quiet with shock, echoed from speakers the security team had patched into the laboratory. They'd watched the entire engagement on monitors, unable to intervene, barely able to process what they'd witnessed. He just killed something the size of a small starship, alone, in under 4 minutes. Worf said nothing. Words seemed inadequate. He'd called the warrior glorious before, but even that fell short. This was beyond glory, beyond honor. This was something primal and perfect. Violence elevated to its purest expression. Picard's voice came through more controlled, but carrying undertones of deep concern. Can someone please explain to me how we're supposed to work with someone who solves every problem by shooting it? Captain, Data's voice interjected. I believe the question is reversed. How is he supposed to work with us when our solutions demonstrably fail against these threats? The observation hung in the air, uncomfortable in its accuracy. On the security feed, they watched the Slayer approach the rift. His gauntlet holographic display activated again, projecting data streams they couldn't fully interpret. But the conclusion was clear. The rift's dimensional membrane had been severely weakened by the cyber demon's passage. It wouldn't take much to collapse it now, just the right application of force at the right angle, or the right person going through it and closing it from the other side. He's going to go through, Geordi said, reading the same data on his engineering console. He's analyzing the rift structure, looking for a way to cross over. To hell? Riker's voice carried disbelief. That's suicide. For us, yes, Worf said quietly. For him, I am not certain anymore. Picard made a decision. He'd been trained to find diplomatic solutions, to build bridges of understanding, to avoid violence whenever possible. But watching this warrior fight, seeing the efficiency with which he eliminated threats that Starfleet weapons could barely scratch, forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth. Some problems couldn't be negotiated away. Some enemies didn't respond to reason. Hell was one of them. Computer, open a channel to Laboratory 7, Picard ordered. Route it through the remaining speakers in that section. Channel open, Captain. Picard drew himself up, speaking with all the command presence he'd cultivated over decades. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. I don't know if you can understand me or if you care to, but I'm asking you, please don't go through that rift alone. Let us help. Let us coordinate. We have the resources of Starfleet behind us, technologies that might... The Doomslayer turned his visor toward the nearest speaker. For a long moment, he simply stared at it. Then he raised one gauntleted hand and made a gesture the universal translator didn't need to parse. He gave a thumbs up, not mocking, not dismissive, just acknowledgement. I understand. Thank you. But this is what I do. Then he turned back to the rift and began configuring his Praetor suit for dimensional transit. Picard closed his eyes briefly. He'd tried. He'd offered every resource at his disposal. And the warrior had politely, silently declined. There was a terrible purity to it, a being so dedicated to his purpose that nothing could sway him from it. No promises, no threats, no appeals to self-preservation. Captain, Data said, if he enters the rift, we'll lose all sensor contact. We won't be able to assist or extract him if he becomes compromised. I know, Commander. He'll be alone in a hostile dimension, facing an unknown number of enemies, with no support and no way home. I know. Worf's voice cut through the concern. He prefers it that way. They all knew it was true. On the security feed, the Doomslayer completed his preparations. His Praetor suit's energy signature shifted, adapting to accommodate dimensional transit. The rift before him pulsed in response, sensing something attempting to cross from Federation space into Hell's domain. Normally, the rift only allowed passage one way, demons coming through to this universe. Forcing passage in the opposite direction would require enormous energy expenditure and perfect timing. The Slayer had both. He took 3 steps back, lowered his shoulder, and charged the rift at full sprint. His armored form hit the dimensional membrane with enough force to create visible ripples in space-time. For a moment, reality resisted, the fundamental laws of both universes trying to reject the intrusion. Then the Praetor suit's dimensional adaptation protocols kicked in, and he punched through. The last thing the security cameras captured before the rift's interference overwhelmed the sensors was the Doomslayer, alone, standing in Hell itself. Around him, thousands of demons turned toward the intruder in their domain. The Slayer's weapons came up, tracking targets, preparing for the fight of his existence. Then the feed went to static. In Laboratory 7, in the heart of Starbase 375, in the 24th century of a universe built on hope and exploration, a warrior from another reality had just invaded Hell. And somewhere in the command structure of Hell's armies, something ancient and powerful felt a cold tendril of fear. The silence in Laboratory 7 lasted exactly 4.3 seconds before the rift erupted with activity. Not demons emerging, the opposite. Energy signatures on the Hell side of the dimensional barrier began winking out in rapid succession. 12, 20, 37. The demonic biosigns that had clustered near the rift's far side were being systematically eliminated with mechanical efficiency. Whatever the Doomslayer was doing on the other side, he'd gone to work immediately. Remarkable, Data observed from the Enterprise, his positronic brain parsing the sensor data faster than organic minds could process. The rate of hostile neutralization has increased by 43% compared to his combat performance in our dimension. I theorize that the presence of native Argent energy allows his equipment to operate at full efficiency. Translation data? Riker asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. In Hell, he is significantly more dangerous than he was. Here, on Starbase 375, the away team had regrouped in a temporary command center 3 sections away from the laboratory. Holographic displays showed what little sensor data penetrated the dimensional interference. Fragmentary readings, energy spikes, and the steadily decreasing count of demonic signatures on the far side. Picard stood before the main display, hands clasped behind his back, his expression troubled. Mr. Worf, status of the remaining demons on our side? 34 contacts remaining, Captain, but their behavior has changed. Worf pulled up a tactical overlay. They've ceased their aggressive advance. Several clusters are attempting to reach the rift, as if trying to retreat. Others appear disoriented. They're scared, Geordi said, his visor letting him see the energy patterns ordinary sensors missed. The demons on this side can sense what's happening over there. They know something's tearing through their reinforcements. Dr. Vasquez, her arm still in a medical brace, studied the Argent corruption readings. Captain, the dimensional barrier is destabilizing further. Not from the demons trying to push through, but from something on the Hell side. Pushing back, as if Hell itself is trying to expel whatever's inside it. Expel? Picard turned toward her. You're suggesting that Hell, an entire dimension, is rejecting a single individual? I'm saying that the Argent energy patterns I'm reading aren't invasion signatures anymore. They're defense signatures. Hell is trying to protect itself. The implications settled over the command center like a weight. They'd been thinking of the Doomslayer as a powerful warrior, an exceptional combatant who could hold his own against demonic forces. But if an entire dimension was going on the defensive against him, what exactly did we let through our rift? Riker asked quietly. The answer came not from the Federation crew, but from the Starbase's communication systems. Every speaker, every console, every holographic display suddenly erupted with a sound that made hardened Starfleet officers flinch. A roar that was part bestial fury, part mechanical distortion, and entirely inhuman. It echoed through the corridors, and every demon still aboard the station reacted immediately. They fled. Imps abandoned their positions and scrambled toward the rift. Hell Knights, previously fearless in combat, turned and ran. Even the scattered lesser demons showed something that shouldn't have been possible. Panic. Pure, instinctive terror. All demons are converging on Laboratory 7, Worf reported, his tactical display lighting up with movement vectors. They're not attacking, they're retreating. Into the rift? Picard asked. Attempting to. But Captain, Worf's expression darkened. Something is preventing them. The security feeds from Laboratory 7 showed why. The rift had changed. Where before it had been a passive doorway between dimensions, now it pulsed with violent energy fluctuations. Demons that reached the threshold and tried to cross through were met with resistance, not from Federation containment fields, but from the hell side, as if something on the other side was actively preventing escape. An imp reached the rift's edge and threw itself toward salvation. The dimensional membrane rippled, accepted the demon halfway, and then something grabbed it from the other side. The imp shrieked as it was pulled back through, its claws scrambling uselessly against the deck plating. Then it vanished into the crimson light, and its biosignature winked out 3 seconds later. He's using them as a barrier, Geordi breathed, horrified understanding dawning. He's keeping the demons on our side trapped here, and he's using the ones trying to escape to lure more toward the rift. He's not just hunting them, he's hurting them. Picard felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't combat. This wasn't even warfare in any sense Starfleet doctrine recognized. This was systematic extermination executed with perfect efficiency. Can we communicate with him? Picard asked. Warn him of what, Captain? Worf interrupted, his warrior's pragmatism cutting through diplomatic instincts. That his methods are too effective? That we're uncomfortable with how thoroughly he's solving the problem we couldn't? The words stung because they were accurate. Starfleet had been fighting the demonic incursion for hours with minimal success. The Doomslayer had been fighting for minutes and was winning decisively. The moral discomfort the Federation felt was their problem, not his. Data's console chimed. Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup on the hell side of the rift. Classification uncertain, but the power levels exceed anything we've measured previously. Another demon? Riker asked, dreading the answer. Negative. The energy signature is moving, rapidly, toward the rift from deep within Hell's territory. If I'm interpreting these readings correctly, something is approaching the dimensional barrier at extreme velocity. Estimated time to breach, 90 seconds. The command center tensed. After the cyberdemon, they'd thought they'd seen Hell's heaviest assets. But if something even larger was coming through... All remaining Starbase personnel, evacuate Laboratory Section 7, Picard ordered. Seal all bulkheads. If another creature that size emerges, I want... The energy signature reached the rift and exploded through. Not a demon. Bodies. Hundreds of demon corpses came tumbling through the dimensional barrier, launched from the hell side with enough velocity to suggest they'd been literally thrown. Imps, Hell Knights, Barons, Mancubi, all dead, all bearing wounds that told stories of brutal, efficient kills. The corpses piled up in Laboratory 7, a monument to systematic slaughter that made even seasoned Starfleet officers look away. And then he came through. The Doomslayer. Emerged from the rift covered head to toe in demon ichor, his armor smoking from sustained combat, moving with the unstoppable momentum of a being who just fought through hell itself and won. His visor glowed brighter than before, the Argent energy absorption having supercharged his systems. In one hand, he carried something that made Dr. Vasquez gasp, a crystalline structure that pulsed with corrupt energy. An Argent accumulator, one of Hell's key infrastructure components. He'd gone into Hell, killed everything between him and a strategic target, ripped out a critical power source, and brought it back as a trophy. The demons still on the Starbase's side sensed his return. The remaining 34 contacts scattered in pure panic, abandoning all coordination and fleeing into the deepest, darkest corners of the station they could find. It wouldn't save them. They knew it wouldn't save them. But instinct overrode reason. The Doomslayer paused at the rift's threshold, turned back, toward Hell, and did something that sent chills through every observer. He raised his gauntleted hand and made a gesture. Come here. Taunting, inviting, daring Hell to send more. No response came. Hell had tried its scouts. It had tried its heavy assault units. It had committed a cyberdemon. All had failed. And now this warrior stood at the boundary between dimensions, drenched in the blood of hundreds of demons, openly challenging an entire dimension to try again. Hell declined. The rift began to collapse, not from Federation intervention or Commander Data's graviton pulse, but from the Hell side. The dimension was sealing the breach itself, cutting its losses, refusing to feed more resources into a meat grinder that wore powered armor. The dimensional membrane contracted, the crimson light fading, reality reasserting its proper boundaries. Within 30 seconds, the rift had shrunk to the size of a dinner plate. Within 60, it winked out entirely. Where there had been a wound, between universes, now there was only scarred deck plating and the lingering smell of sulfur. The Doomslayer stood in the center of Laboratory 7, surrounded by demon corpses, holding a piece of Hell's infrastructure, and waited for the Federation's response. Picard activated his comm badge. All hands, seal Laboratory 7. Establish a security perimeter, but do not, I repeat, do not attempt to apprehend or disarm the individual inside. Mr. Worf, you're with me. Captain, Riker said carefully. Is it wise to approach him directly? After what we just witnessed. Number one, that warrior just saved this starbase and possibly prevented Hell itself from establishing a permanent foothold in our universe. The least we can do is thank him in person. The walk to Laboratory 7 felt longer than it should have. Emergency crews were already working to contain the Argent corruption, now manageable without fresh demonic incursions feeding it. Medical teams tended to the wounded. 47 casualties total, far fewer than initial projections had suggested. The demons that remained, scattered throughout the station, were being hunted down by security teams who now understood that stun settings were useless and kill settings were mandatory. A cultural shift was happening in real time. Starfleet personnel who'd built careers on peaceful exploration were learning to shoot to kill. It troubled Picard deeply, but he couldn't deny the necessity. The doors to Laboratory 7 opened with a hydraulic hiss. Picard and Worf entered to find the Doomslayer exactly where the sensors indicated, standing amid the carnage he'd created, methodically stripping components from the Argent accumulator with tools built into his gauntlets. He didn't look up as they approached, didn't acknowledge their presence, simply continued working with the focus of someone performing routine maintenance. I want to thank you. Picard began, choosing his words carefully. What you did today, going into that dimension, stopping the invasion at its source, saved thousands of lives. The Federation owes you a debt of gratitude. No response. The Slayer's hands continued working, dismantling the crystalline structure with practiced efficiency. Picard tried again. We'd like to help you. Find a way home if possible, or offer you sanctuary here if you prefer. The Federation has resources, technology that might... The Slayer paused. His visor turned toward Picard, and the captain saw his own reflection in that glowing green lens. A diplomat trying to communicate with a warrior who existed beyond words. Then the Slayer's holographic interface activated, projecting an image above his gauntlet. It showed the Starbase. Not as it was now, but as it would be in 6 hours, according to the original projections. Consumed by argent corruption, transformed into a permanent hellgate. Thousands dead. The infection spreading to nearby systems, then sectors, then eventually, threatening the entire Federation. Then the image shifted, showed what had actually happened. The invasion stopped, the corruption contained, the rift sealed, all because one warrior had done what needed to be done. The hologram shifted again, showing 34 remaining demonic signatures scattered throughout the station. The Slayer tapped his chest plate. The message was clear. I'm not done yet. We can handle the remaining demons, Picard said. Our security teams are already mobilizing, and now that we understand the threat, the Slayer's hologram shifted one more time, showing a Starfleet security team encountering a Hell Knight. Even with phasers on maximum, even with tactical coordination, the engagement lasted 47 seconds and resulted in 3 casualties before the demon was brought down. Then it showed the Slayer encountering the same type of demon. 4 seconds, 0 casualties, perfect efficiency. The math was brutal but undeniable. Every minute the Federation spent hunting demons was minutes more lives were at risk. Every demon the Slayer hunted personally was lives saved. Worf stepped forward and, to Picard's surprise, performed a traditional Klingon salute, right fist over heart. You fight with honor, the Klingon said simply. You protect those weaker than yourself. You face death without fear. In my culture, this makes you a warrior worthy of songs. The Slayer regarded Worf for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he returned the gesture. Fist over heart. Not perfectly executed, but the intent was clear. Recognition. Respect. Warrior to warrior. Then he turned and walked toward the laboratory's exit. Weapons ready, motion tracker already highlighting the nearest demonic signature. He had work to do, and no amount of talking would stop him from doing it. Let him go, Picard said quietly as Worf tensed. He's right. We can't stop those creatures as efficiently as he can, and every moment we delay costs lives. They watched him disappear into the corridor, a walking arsenal on a mission no one could dissuade him from. Behind them, the remains of hundreds of demons slowly dissolved into ash. The physical evidence of his capabilities impossible to deny. Captain, Worf said after a moment, I believe we need to reconsider our approach to this situation. How so? We've been trying to control him, coordinate with him, make him fit into Starfleet protocols. The Klingon's expression was thoughtful. But he is not Starfleet. He is not Federation. He is something that exists outside our frameworks. And perhaps that is exactly what this situation requires. Picard nodded slowly. It went against every instinct he'd honed over decades of command, the belief that reason, diplomacy, and coordination were superior to individual action. But this warrior had just demonstrated the limits of that philosophy. Some threats didn't respond to reason. Some battles couldn't be won through diplomacy. And some warriors needed to fight alone, because that's when they were most effective. "Very well," Picard said. "We'll support him however we can. Clear corridors for his approach. Evacuate civilians from his path. Provide intelligence on demon locations. But we won't try to stop him or slow him down." A wise decision, Captain. From deep within the Starbase, the sound of weapons fire echoed. Heavy, brutal, unmistakably the Doomslayer engaging his prey. 34 demons. By morning, Picard suspected, there would be none. The Federation had just learned an uncomfortable lesson about the nature of evil and those who fought it. Some darkness couldn't be reasoned with. Sometimes, you needed someone willing to descend into hell itself and drag the monsters out by force. They'd found that someone. Now they just had to figure out what to do with him once the fighting was done. The hunt lasted 6 hours and 43 minutes. Starfleet security teams tracked the Doomslayer's progress through internal sensors, watching in real time as demon signatures winked out one by one. He moved through Starbase 375 like a force of nature. Systematic, relentless, inevitable. The demons tried everything. Ambushes, regrouping, even attempting to use hostages. None of it worked. The Slayer always found them, always adapted, always prevailed. By hour 3, the remaining demons stopped trying to fight and focused solely on hiding. By hour 5, even hiding proved futile. The Praetor suit's motion tracker was too sophisticated, his hunter's instinct too refined. One Hell Knight had buried itself in the Starbase's waste reclamation system, sealed behind 3 meters of reinforced bulkhead. The Slayer found it anyway, tore through the bulkhead with his bare hands, and eliminated the target in 7 seconds. When the final demonic signature vanished, an imp that had somehow reached the Starbase's external hull and was clinging to the antenna array. Picard received confirmation from every section simultaneously. Starbase 375 was clear. Not a single demon remained alive. The Doomslayer returned to the main concourse, his armor still steaming from the sustained combat, and simply stopped. His motion tracker showed no hostiles. His threat assessment protocols detected no demonic corruption. The mission was complete. Now came the complicated part. Word of what had happened spread through Starfleet channels with the speed of subspace communication. A dimensional breach, demonic invasion, Starbase nearly lost, saved by an unknown warrior from another universe who'd single-handedly accomplished what would have required a fleet-level response. Admiral Hayes at Starfleet Command wanted answers. Admiral Ross at Deep Space Nine wanted intelligence reports. Admiral Nechayev wanted to know if this warrior represented a threat to Federation security. Picard stood in the Starbase's conference room, surrounded by holographic projections of his superiors, and struggled to explain something that defied Starfleet's entire philosophical framework. "Let me see if I understand correctly," Admiral Nechayev said, her voice carrying that particular blend of skepticism and concern that had made her legendary in diplomatic circles. This individual, this Doomslayer as you're calling him, arrived through an unauthorized dimensional experiment, proceeded to kill approximately 473 hostile entities, invaded another dimension, destroyed key infrastructure there, and then systematically hunted down every remaining threat on your station. All without coordination, communication, or regard for our protocols. "That's an accurate summary, Admiral," Picard confirmed. "And you let him do this?" "With respect, Admiral, I didn't let him do anything. He was going to complete his mission regardless of our objections. The question was whether we'd work with him or against him. I chose the former." Admiral Hayes leaned forward in his holographic projection. "Captain Picard, your record speaks for itself. But this situation is unprecedented. We have an individual of unknown origin with catastrophic combat capabilities loose in Federation space. What's to stop him from deciding we're threats? Or that our diplomatic approach to conflicts makes us weak? What happens when he encounters the Romulans or the Klingons? Worf, standing beside Picard, spoke up. "Admiral, with respect, the Klingons would welcome him. I've sent preliminary reports to the High Council." Chancellor Martok himself responded personally. He wishes to meet this warrior, to offer him a place among our people. "The Klingons would," Nechayev muttered. "Captain, what are his intentions? What does he want?" "I don't know, Admiral. He doesn't speak. He communicates through actions and occasional holographic projections, but his motivations remain unclear. What I can tell you is that he demonstrated clear protection of innocent lives. He could have caused massive collateral damage during his engagements, but consistently avoided civilian casualties. His violence, while extreme, was directed exclusively at genuine threats." Admiral Ross, calling in from Deep Space Nine, brought up a tactical display. "I've reviewed the combat footage. This individual's capabilities exceed anything in our threat assessment databases. His personal weapons rival Starship-grade armaments. His armor withstands sustained phaser fire. And according to your report, he's capable of dimensional transit without technological assistance." "The Praetor's suit provides that capability," Picard corrected. "But yes, his technology is far beyond our current understanding." "Which brings us to the other problem," Nechayev said. "Section 31. They created this mess with their unauthorized experiments. They opened a door to what might actually be hell, and they need to answer for it. But right now, they're claiming this warrior is their asset, that he came through their portal, so he falls under their jurisdiction." Picard's expression hardened. "Admiral, I cannot in good conscience allow Section 31 to take custody of this individual. He's not a weapon to be studied or controlled. He's a person?" Nechayev's tone was sharp. "We don't even know if he's human, Captain. For all we know, he's as much a demon as the creatures he killed, wearing armor instead of flesh, but ultimately just another transdimensional entity." "Admiral, however," Nechayev continued, "I'm inclined to agree with you. Section 31 has overstepped their mandate too many times. If this warrior represents technology they can't control, I don't trust them not to try anyway and create an even worse situation. So here's what's going to happen. The Enterprise will maintain contact with this individual. You'll attempt to establish communication, determine his origins, and assess whether he represents a threat to Federation security. If he wants to leave Federation space, we'll provide him with coordinates to the border. If he wants to stay..." She paused, clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to say. "If he stays, we'll need to establish some kind of arrangement. Rules of engagement, protocols. The Federation can't have individuals operating outside our legal framework, regardless of their combat effectiveness." "Understood, Admiral. Though I should note that getting him to agree to protocols may prove challenging. Do your best, Captain. Starfleet out." The holograms winked out, leaving Picard alone with his senior officers. Commander Data had joined them, along with Geordi and Dr. Crusher, who'd been treating the wounded from the demonic attack. "So," Riker said, breaking the silence, "we're supposed to convince a warrior who just fought through literal hell that he needs to follow our rules?" "More or less, Number One. That should go well." Dr. Crusher spoke up, her medical perspective adding a different angle. "Jean-Luc, I've been analyzing the footage of him in combat. His physiological responses, what little we can detect through that armor, suggest he's been fighting for an extremely long time. Possibly years, decades, maybe longer. The efficiency of his movements, the absolute lack of hesitation, that's not trained behavior. That's ingrained at a neurological level. He doesn't think about fighting anymore. He just does it. Your point, Doctor? My point is that we're not dealing with a soldier who can be reasoned with using conventional arguments. We're dealing with someone whose entire existence has been refined down to one purpose: kill demons, protect humanity. Everything else is secondary. If we want to reach him, we need to speak to that purpose, not try to fit him into our organizational charts. Data tilted his head. Dr. Crusher's assessment aligns with my analysis. The Doomslayer operates according to a moral framework that is simultaneously simpler and more absolute than Federation ethics. Demons are evil, humans are good, and violence against the former to protect the latter is not only justified, but obligatory. There is no gray area in his worldview. Then we'll need to show him that the galaxy is more complicated than that, Picard said. Not everything is demons and humans. There are dozens of sentient species, complex political situations, moral dilemmas that can't be solved through violence alone. Worf's expression suggested he disagreed, but remained silent. Where is he now? Picard asked. Deck 7, Section 12, Data reported. He's taken position near the external observation port overlooking the station's docking array. He hasn't moved in 47 minutes. What's he doing? Unknown. Sensors indicate he's simply standing there, watching. Picard made a decision. I'm going to talk to him. Alone. Captain, I don't think... Riker began. Number one, if he wanted to harm us, he's had ample opportunity. And frankly, if he did decide to attack, I'm not certain what our security protocols could do to stop him. No, this requires a different approach. Trust me. 20 minutes later, Picard found the Doomslayer exactly where Data had indicated. The observation port offered a view of the massive Starbase structure. The Enterprise E docked at one berth and beyond, the infinite expanse of space. The warrior stood perfectly still, his armored form silhouetted against the stars, watching the cosmos with an intensity that suggested he was seeing more than just vacuum and distant suns. Beautiful, isn't it? Picard said, approaching slowly. We've been exploring space for centuries, and it never ceases to inspire. Every star is a sun, potentially with worlds orbiting it. Worlds with life, civilizations, stories we've yet to discover. The Slayer didn't respond, but his helmet tilted slightly, listening. I've spent my career among those stars. Picard continued. I've seen wonders that defy description, nebulae that paint space in colors no artist could capture, ancient ruins that speak to civilizations millions of years old, life forms that exist in dimensions we can barely perceive. The universe is vast and strange and beautiful. Still no response. But it's also dangerous, Picard admitted. You've seen that firsthand. Hell exists. Demons exist. Evil exists in forms both metaphysical and mundane. The Federation was built on the belief that we could rise above that darkness through reason, compassion, and cooperation. That we could create a society where violence was unnecessary. The Slayer's visor turned toward him. Picard saw his reflection in that green glow and continued. You've shown us the limits of that philosophy. Some threats don't respond to diplomacy. Some battles must be fought, not negotiated. It's a hard lesson, and one we've been reluctant to learn. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But I hope you understand that violence, while sometimes necessary, isn't sufficient on its own. The Federation doesn't just defeat threats. We build alliances, forge understanding between species, create frameworks for peaceful coexistence. It's slow work, sometimes frustrating work, but it's how we've managed to unite dozens of worlds under a banner of cooperation. The Slayer's holographic interface activated. It showed Earth, not the Federation's Earth, but his Earth. A world ravaged by demonic invasion, cities in ruins, humanity clinging to survival in fortified enclaves. Then it showed what happened when diplomacy failed against hell. Governments trying to negotiate with demon lords. Scientists thinking they could study and control demonic energy. Religious leaders believing they could reason with cosmic evil. All of them dead. All of their attempts at peaceful resolution ending in slaughter. Then the image shifted to show the Slayer's approach. Find demons, kill demons, repeat until no demons remain. Simple, brutal, effective. I understand, Picard said quietly. In your universe, you learn that some evils can't be negotiated with. You're absolutely right. Hell is one of them. But this isn't your universe. Here we have Klingons, warriors as fierce as any demon, but capable of honor and alliance. We have Romulans, deceptive and dangerous, but rational actors who can be reasoned with. We even have former enemies like the Cardassians, slowly learning to coexist peacefully after decades of conflict. The hologram shifted again. Showed Klingons. The Slayer's HUD had recorded his encounter with Worf, analyzing the Klingons' physiology, weapon capabilities, and cultural markers. A question appeared in the projection. Friend or enemy? Friends, Picard said firmly. Allies. The Klingon Empire and the Federation were enemies once, but we found common ground. Now we fight together against genuine threats. It took time, diplomacy, mutual respect, but it worked. The Slayer stood silent, processing. His combat protocols were absolute when it came to demons. They were enemy combatants, end of analysis. But in his own universe, he'd protected human soldiers even when they shot at him out of fear. He'd defended Mars colonies that wanted nothing to do with him. His prime directive wasn't kill everything, it was kill everything that threatened humanity. The question was, what counted as humanity in this strange new universe? His HUD had been analyzing the Federation for hours, scanned thousands of individuals across dozens of species. Humans, yes, but also Vulcans, Klingons, Andorians, dozens more. None registered as demonic. None showed hell corruption. They were just different kinds of people. Could he accept that? Could a warrior forged in hell's fires, whose entire existence had been defined by a clear binary of demon versus human, adapt to a universe of complex moral grays? The Slayer's gauntlet moved slowly, deliberately. He brought up his holographic display one more time. It showed the Starbase, the Enterprise, and highlighted the hundreds of life signs aboard both, human and non-human. Then a simple designation appeared over all of them. Protected. Not ally, not friend. Not any designation that implied trust or understanding. Just a cold tactical assessment. These beings were not demons, therefore they fell under his protection protocol. It was the closest thing to agreement Picard was going to get. Thank you, the captain said sincerely. I know this universe must seem strange to you, but I hope in time you'll see that it's worth protecting. Not just from demons, but from all the darkness that threatens it. The Slayer's visor held Picard's gaze for a long moment. Then he turned back to the observation port, back to watching the stars. The conversation, such as it was, had ended. Picard returned to his crew with mixed feelings. He'd established a tenuous understanding with the warrior, but hadn't solved the fundamental problem. What do you do with someone this powerful who operates outside all established frameworks? The answer came not from Starfleet Command, but from an unexpected source. Captain, Data reported as Picard entered the bridge. We're receiving a transmission from a Klingon bird of prey. They're requesting permission to dock and speak with... They refer to him as the Demon Slayer. Chancellor Martok himself is aboard. Picard and Riker exchanged glances. The Chancellor? Himself? Apparently, word of our visitor's exploits has spread through Klingon space. They wish to extend a formal invitation. An invitation to what? Worf's expression held something that might have been pride. To join the Empire, Captain. They want to offer him a position among our warriors, a place where his skills would be valued, not feared. Of course they did. The Klingons had watched him fight through hell itself and seen a kindred spirit, while the Federation debated protocols and worried about his methods. The Empire simply recognized a warrior worthy of honor and respect. The question was, would the Doomslayer accept? And perhaps more importantly, what would it mean for the galaxy if he did? Chancellor Martok of the Klingon High Council was a warrior who'd earned his position through combat, cunning, and an uncanny ability to judge character. He'd fought the Dominion, survived Jem'Hadar prison camps, and led the Empire through its darkest hours. When he materialized aboard Starbase 375 with an honor guard of his finest warriors, every eye in the transporter room turned toward the legendary figure. Martok ignored them all. His attention fixed immediately on the armored warrior standing at the room's far end, motionless as a statue. "So," Martok said, his voice carrying the gravitas of someone accustomed to command. "You are the one who invaded hell itself and made demons flee in terror. The one who fights alone because no one else can keep pace." He approached slowly, his honor guard fanning out behind him. "I am Martok, son of Urthog, Chancellor of the Klingon High Council, and I have come to extend an invitation." The Doomslayer's visor tracked the Klingons with his usual intensity. His HUD analyzed their weapons, bat'leths, diktogs, disruptors, all carried openly and without apology. Warriors. His combat protocols registered them as potential threats, but detected no hostile intent. Not yet, anyway. Martok stopped 3 meters away, close enough to demonstrate respect, but far enough to avoid crowding. A warrior's distance. "The Federation doesn't know what to do with you. They fear your power. They're uncomfortable with your methods. They want to fit you into their neat organizational structures, make you follow their rules, convince you that violence is always the last resort." He gestured dismissively. "We Klingons know better. Some enemies exist only to be destroyed. Some battles can only be won through strength and courage. The Federation built their civilization on avoiding such truths. The Empire embraced them." Picard, who'd accompanied the Klingon delegation, felt compelled to interject. "Chancellor, the Federation's approach has brought peace to dozens of worlds, and nearly lost you this starbase to demons your phasers couldn't scratch." Martok countered, not unkindly. "I respect your Federation, Captain Picard. I call many of your people friends. But let us not pretend your philosophy would have saved you here. This warrior saved you, alone, using methods you find distasteful but cannot deny were effective." He turned back to the Slayer. "The Empire offers you something different. Join us. Fight alongside warriors who understand that honor is earned through battle, that some enemies deserve no mercy, that strength serves those who wield it justly. You would have a place among us. Resources, ships, warriors eager to fight at your side." Worf stepped forward, adding his voice to his Chancellor's. "In Klingon culture, a warrior who demonstrates exceptional prowess can challenge for any position, earn any honor. You have proven yourself in combat beyond question. You could command fleets, lead houses, shape the Empire's destiny. All that would be required is your oath of loyalty to the High Council. The Doomslayer's holographic interface activated, projecting an image that made several Klingons grip their weapons instinctively. It showed hell. Not the sanitized sensor readings the Federation had recorded, but the raw, unfiltered reality of that dimension. Rivers of blood and fire, towers of bone and tortured souls. Demons beyond counting, a civilization built entirely on suffering and corruption. Then it showed the Slayer's war against them. Not one battle or one campaign, but thousands. Across years, decades, possibly centuries. The timeline was unclear. World after world reclaimed from hell's grip. Demon strongholds reduced to ash. An endless war fought without rest, without mercy, without the luxury of choosing when and where to fight. The hologram zoomed out, showing the full scope. In his universe, hell wasn't one dimension. It was a cancer spreading across reality, consuming universe after universe. And he'd been fighting it alone. Not because he chose isolation, but because everyone else who tried to fight beside him died. Humans, aliens, warriors, scientists, hell consumed them all. Only he endured. The image shifted one final time, showing a simple message in Klingon. His translator had analyzed their language during the conversation. The war never ends. Martok absorbed this with the solemn understanding of a warrior who'd seen too much death. You're telling us that in your reality, this is not a war you can win, only a war you can fight. Forever. The Slayer's helmet dipped once. Confirmation. And yet, you fight anyway. Respect colored Martok's tone. Not for glory, not for honor, not even for victory. You fight because if you stop, hell wins. Because someone must stand between the darkness and those who cannot defend themselves. That is... He paused, searching for the right word in his own language. Kavam, the truest warrior's path. Not fighting for what you can gain, but for what you refuse to lose. He placed his fist over his heart in formal salute. You honor us with your presence, Demon Slayer, and I understand now why you cannot accept my offer. You fight a war that transcends empires and alliances. To bind yourself to any political structure would limit you, slow you down when every moment counts. You must remain free to fight wherever hell emerges. The Slayer returned the gesture, fist over heart, with more precision this time, learning, adapting. However, Martok continued, that does not mean we cannot assist you. The Klingon Empire has resources you may need, ships, weapons, intelligence. If hell appears within our borders, you would have our full support. No questions, no bureaucratic delays, no debates about rules of engagement. Just warriors ready to fight alongside you. He pulled a device from his belt, a compact communicator designed for long-range subspace transmission. This will reach me directly, bypassing all normal channels. If you need anything the Empire can provide, if you encounter threats that require fleet support, use it. I give you my word as Chancellor that the response will be immediate. The Slayer studied the device, then took it. His gauntlet analyzed the technology in seconds. Quantum encryption, military-grade construction, authenticated directly to the Chancellor's personal command codes. Legitimate. Useful. He maglocked it to his armor. One more thing, Martok said, his expression turning serious. The Federation will want to study you, to understand your technology, analyze your armor, determine what makes you so effective. Section 31 especially. They see you as a weapon to replicate or control. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The Slayer's visor focused on Martok with laser intensity. Do not let them, the Chancellor advised. The moment you allow others to dissect what makes you unique, you become vulnerable. The moment they understand your technology, They'll try to improve upon it, mass-produce it, and inevitably corrupt it. I've seen it happen. Humans always think they can control power they don't understand. Picard bristled. Chancellor, that's the truth, Captain, and you know it. Martok's tone wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. The Federation's first instinct when encountering superior technology is to study it, reverse engineer it, integrate it into their systems. Usually with noble intentions, sometimes with disastrous results. The Borg, the Genesis device. How many times has humanity's curiosity led to catastrophe? He turned back to the Slayer. Guard your secrets, warrior. Share nothing you're not willing to see corrupted. Trust no one who sees you as a puzzle to solve rather than an ally to respect. Before Picard could respond, alarms erupted throughout the Starbase. Not weapons fire or demon incursions. Something different. Commander Data's voice cut through the chaos over the comm system. Captain, we're detecting spatial anomalies throughout this sector. Multiple subspace rifts forming simultaneously, each one carrying Argent energy signatures similar to the dimensional breach we just sealed. Geordi's voice joined in, tight with stress. Captain, it's not random. The rifts are forming in a pattern, surrounding the Starbase, and I'm reading demonic biosigns on the other side, a lot of them. Sir, I think Hell is attempting a coordinated multi-dimensional assault. The Doomslayer's motion tracker lit up like a supernova. His HUD counted 17 separate rifts opening within weapons range of the Starbase, each one spawning demons by the hundreds. This wasn't an invasion anymore. This was retaliation. Hell had spent hours licking its wounds, analyzing its failure, and now returned with overwhelming force. His holographic display activated automatically, showing the tactical situation to everyone in the room. 17 rifts. Estimated. Demon count, 12,000 and climbing. Starfleet security forces, 600 personnel, mostly trained for non-lethal engagement. The Enterprise, powerful but designed for ship-to-ship combat, not mass demon extermination. The math was catastrophic. All hands to battle stations. Picard ordered immediately. Get the civilians to the shelters. Arm all security personnel with maximum yield weapons. Mr. Data, coordinate with the Enterprise. I want every phaser bank charged and ready to fire on those rifts. Captain, the rifts are protected by some kind of dimensional shielding. Our weapons are phasing through without effect. Of course they were. Hell had learned, adapted. The first incursion had been exploratory. This was a strategic assault designed to neutralize everything that had stopped them before. Martok growled deep in his throat. My ship carries a full complement of warriors and tricobalt devices. We can engage the demon forces, draw them away from civilian areas. Appreciated, Chancellor. But even with both our ships, we're facing overwhelming numbers. Picard's tactical mind was already calculating casualty projections. They weren't good. The Doomslayer's gauntlet moved, typing something into his holographic interface. Words appeared in standard Federation. Need bigger weapon. What kind of weapon? Riker asked. The hologram shifted, showing schematics that made Geordi's eyes go wide, even viewing them secondhand through the comm feed. Captain, he's showing designs for some kind of, I don't even know what to call it, a dimensional destabilizer? It uses concentrated Argent energy to create a cascading collapse effect across multiple realities simultaneously. It would seal all 17 rifts at once. Can we build it? Not in time, maybe not at all. The power requirements alone would need... Geordi stopped. Wait, he's highlighting the Starbase's main reactor and the Enterprise's warp core. Captain, I think he wants to chain them together into a makeshift power source. That's insane, Riker said. If the reaction goes unstable, both reactors could overload. The explosion would destroy the starbase and everything within 100 kilometers. The Slayer's hologram updated, acceptable risk. Absolutely not, Picard said firmly. We're not gambling thousands of lives on an untested weapon design from an unknown source. There has to be another way. The Slayer's visor turned toward the view screen, where the rifts were now visible with the naked eye. 17 wounds in space, bleeding crimson light and demon spawn. His motion tracker updated continuously. 15,000 demons, 18,000, 23,000. They were still coming through, and Starfleet's conventional weapons couldn't stop them. He made a decision. His gauntlet accessed the Starbase's systems, not hacking exactly, but utilizing emergency override codes that the Praetor suit's AI had extrapolated from observing Federation technology. The reactor controls unlocked. Power flow diagrams appeared on his HUD. He began calculating the modifications needed. He's accessing our systems, Data reported, alarm creeping into his normally calm voice. Captain, he's initiating reactor modifications without authorization. Stop him, Picard ordered. I cannot, sir. His access codes are... They're not codes at all. He's rewriting our system architecture in real time, creating pathways that shouldn't exist. It's as if our computer is learning a new language just to communicate with his armor. Worf drew his phaser. Should I? No. Martok's hand fell on Worf's shoulder. Look at him. The Slayer stood perfectly still amid the chaos, his holographic interface displaying calculations that scrolled faster than human eyes could follow. But it wasn't the math that made Martok speak. It was the warrior's posture. Not aggressive, not defiant, just absolutely certain. This was someone who'd made impossible decisions before, who'd gambled everything on desperate plans and won through sheer determination. He's done this before, Martok said quietly. Different circumstances, different universe, but the same calculation. Risk everything to save everyone. He knows the odds. He knows the danger. And he's proceeding anyway, because it's the only option that saves us all. On the view screen, the first wave of demons reached the Starbase's outer hull. Weapons fire erupted. Phasers, photon torpedoes, disruptors from Martok's bird of prey. Demons died by the dozens, but hundreds more replaced them. The mathematics of attrition were brutal and undeniable. Picard watched his crew fight a losing battle and made his choice. Mr. Data, cooperate with him. Give him whatever access he needs. Geordi, assist with the reactor modifications. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Captain, Riker started. I know, number one. But look at our alternatives. We can evacuate, abandon the Starbase, and watch Hell claim it as a permanent gateway. We can fight conventionally and lose thousands of lives buying time we don't have. Or we can trust that a warrior who's fought Hell for lifetimes knows how to beat it. He turned to the Slayer. How long do you need? The hologram updated. 8 minutes. You have 6. After that, the demons will breach our inner hull and civilian casualties become inevitable. The Slayer's helmet dipped once, acknowledgement and acceptance. Then he was moving, heading toward the reactor level at a full sprint. His holographic interface transmitted specifications to Geordi and Data as he ran, diagrams and calculations that pushed Federation engineering to its absolute limits. Martok watched him go, then turned to his honor guard. Prepare for battle. We hold the line until the Demon Slayer completes his work. No demon reaches the civilians. No retreat. We stand and we fight. Today is a good day to die, his warriors roared in response. Let us hope, Martok added quietly, that it doesn't come to that. The battle for Starbase 375 had entered its final phase. Thousands of demons versus hundreds of defenders. Conventional weapons versus hellfire and claws. And at the center of it all, one warrior racing against time to build a weapon that would either save them all or destroy them trying. The next 6 minutes would determine the fate of everyone aboard. The Doomslayer reached Engineering Deck 3 in 47 seconds, moving through corridors at speeds that left startled crew members pressing themselves against bulkheads. His HUD displayed the countdown, 5 minutes, 13 seconds remaining, while simultaneously processing the modifications needed to transform 2 separate reactor systems into a unified dimensional weapon. Geordi LaForge was already there, his visor letting him see the energy flows that ordinary eyes missed. Okay, I've routed auxiliary power through the secondary conduits like your specs indicated. But I need you to understand something. What you're proposing violates about 16 fundamental principles of warp field theory. If the harmonic frequencies desync by even 0.03%, the resulting cascade will. The Slayer's gauntlet moved across the reactor control panel with precision that suggested intimate familiarity with technology far beyond Federation standards. His hands moved too, fast for Geordi to track, reconfiguring systems that should have required hours of careful calibration. Except he wasn't calibrating. He was rebuilding on the fly, transforming Federation technology into something it was never designed to be. Right, Geordi muttered, his visor tracking energy patterns that made no sense by conventional physics. You've done this before. Different tech, same principle. I'll just try to keep up. On the command deck, Data monitored the modifications in real time. Fascinating. He's creating what appears to be an argent energy capacitor using our dilithium matrix as the focusing array. The warp plasma becomes the carrier medium, while the reactor itself serves as the amplification chamber. Captain, if this works, it will represent a fundamental breakthrough in our understanding of dimensional mechanics. And if it doesn't work? Riker asked. The resulting explosion will have a yield comparable to 17 photon torpedoes detonating simultaneously inside our reactor core. On the view screen, the demon assault intensified. They'd breached the outer hull in 14 locations, pouring through like a flood of corruption and fury. Starfleet security teams fought desperately, their phasers set to maximum yield, firing in coordinated volleys that dropped demons by the dozens. But for every demon that fell, 3 more took its place. Martok's Klingons had taken position at the primary choke points, their batleths and diktogs meeting demon claws with the fury of warriors who'd never learned the meaning of retreat. A Hell Knight charged their line. Martok himself met it head-on, his blade catching the demon's wrist and severing the hand in one clean stroke. His warriors surged forward, hacking the creature apart with the efficiency of those who'd perfected the art of close-quarter slaughter. "Glory to the Empire!" Martok roared, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Today we write songs that will echo through eternity." His warriors answered with battle cries that mixed with demon shrieks, creating a symphony of violence that would have horrified any Federation diplomat. But here, now, with hell literally at the gates, even Starfleet personnel found themselves inspired by the Klingons' ferocious courage. Worf fought alongside his people, his batleth moving with the precision of a master. An imp leaped at a wounded security officer. Worf's blade intercepted it mid-flight, bisecting the creature before it could reach its target. "Fall back to the next checkpoint. Wounded first." The Enterprise added her firepower to the defense, her phaser arrays tracking and eliminating demons on the station's exterior hull. But even her impressive armaments couldn't stop the tide. The demons were using their own dead as shields, piling corpses to create barriers that absorbed phaser fire, while fresh hordes advanced behind them. 4 minutes, 27 seconds remaining. In engineering, the Slayer worked with single-minded focus, his hands moving across controls while his mind processed calculations that would have required a team of Federation scientists days to complete. The Argent accumulator he'd ripped from Hell itself served as the weapon's core, its crystalline structure resonating with frequencies that made the Starbase's hull vibrate. Geordi watched the energy readings climb toward dangerous levels. We're at 93% of recommended maximum. Any higher and the containment fields will start breaking down. The Slayer didn't slow down. His HUD showed the demon count, 31,000 and still climbing. A conventional weapon wouldn't cut it. This needed to be overwhelming, absolute. Powerful enough to not just seal the rifts, but collapse the dimensional pathways that allowed them to form in the first place. That meant pushing the reactor beyond any safe limit. He reached for the manual override, intending to disable the safety protocols entirely. Geordi's hand caught his wrist. Wait, I know what you're thinking. And I'm telling you, if you disable those protocols, you're not just risking the reactor, you're risking subspace itself. A rupture at this energy level could create a permanent dead zone. No warp travel, no transporters, no subspace communication for light years around. You'd be saving the Starbase by making this entire sector permanently inaccessible. The Slayer's visor turned toward him. Behind that helmet, ancient eyes assessed the engineer not as an obstacle, but as someone trying to help despite the danger. His holographic display activated, showing Geordi exactly what would happen if they did nothing. Demons overrunning the station, Hell claiming it as a permanent gateway, corruption spreading to nearby systems, the invasion expanding exponentially. Then it showed the alternative. Subspace dead zone, yes, but contained, limited, temporary, possibly recoverable in a few decades once the dimensional energy stabilized. Uncomfortable, inconvenient, but survivable. The choice was stark. Save everyone now and deal with the consequences later, or maintain the status quo and watch thousands die. Damn it, Geordi breathed. You're right. A dead zone is better than a hell zone. Do it. The Slayer disabled the safety protocols. Immediately, every alarm in engineering began screaming. The reactor temperature spiked into the red zone. Containment field integrity dropped to 68%. The entire Starbase shook as energies that should never coexist were forced into artificial harmony. 3 minutes, 41 seconds remaining. On the bridge, Data's console erupted with warnings. Captain, engineering reports reactor destabilization. At current rates, we have less than 4 minutes before catastrophic failure. Can we evacuate in time? Negative, sir. Even with full transporter capacity, we'd need 12 minutes to evacuate all personnel. We're committed. Picard absorbed this information with the calm of a captain who'd stared down death before and knew that sometimes the only way forward was through. All hands, this is the captain. Brace for possible reactor destabilization. Emergency teams, stand by. And to everyone fighting on the front lines, hold your positions just a little longer. Help is coming. The Klingons heard and redoubled their efforts. Martok personally led a charge that drove a cluster of Hell Knights back from a critical junction, his warriors singing battle songs that spoke of glory and honor and the joy of facing overwhelming odds. 3 Klingons fell, dead before they hit the deck. But they took 7 demons with them, and their sacrifice bought precious seconds. Starfleet security forces, inspired by their Klingon allies, abandoned stun protocols entirely and fought with a ferocity their academy instructors never taught. A young ensign, barely 23, fresh from her first deep space assignment, stood her ground against an imp swarm, Serberko Roar, phaser firing on continuous beam until the weapon overheated and died. She drew her sidearm, a simple Type 1 phaser that most officers considered inadequate for combat, and continued firing until every demon in front of her was ash. She survived. Dozens more didn't. 2 minutes, 53 seconds remaining. The Slayer completed the primary modifications and moved to the Enterprise's link-up console. He needed the starship's warp core synchronized with the Starbase reactor, their energy outputs harmonized to a degree that Federation engineering said was impossible. Different reactor types, different power curves, different harmonic frequencies. It shouldn't work. He made it work anyway. His gauntlet interfaced directly with the Enterprise's systems, his Praetor suit's AI engaging in a high-speed dialogue with the ship's computer that Data later described as two alien intelligences learning to speak a common language in real time. Barriers that should have been insurmountable simply dissolved. Systems that should have rejected each other found common ground. The impossible became merely difficult, and the difficult became done. The warp core and reactor achieved synchronization. Energy readings spiked into ranges that made Geordi's visor automatically adjust its input filters to prevent sensory overload. The Argent accumulator at the weapon's heart began to pulse, each beat sending shockwaves through local space-time that registered on sensors across 3 sectors. 1 minute, 47 seconds remaining. We're reading massive energy buildup from the Starbase. A Romulan warbird captain reported to his command, having been monitoring the situation from the neutral zone. Recommend we increase distance immediately. Agreed. All ships, full reverse. Whatever Starfleet is attempting, I do not want to be nearby when it either succeeds or fails catastrophically. The demons sensed it too. Their assault patterns shifted from coordinated invasion to desperate frenzy. They'd been sent to claim this outpost, to punish those who defied hell, to establish a permanent foothold in this new universe. But now their instincts, ancient, primal, born from eons of existence in a hostile dimension, screamed warnings. Something was building, something that could hurt them not just physically, but existentially. They attacked with everything they had, throwing themselves at the defenders in suicidal waves, trying to breach the final defensive lines before whatever was building could be unleashed. 59 seconds remaining. Martok took a plasma blast to the shoulder, the impact spinning him around and nearly knocking him from his feet. He roared defiance, switched his batleth to his offhand, and kept fighting. Around him, his warriors formed a living wall, their bodies the only barrier between demons and the civilians sheltering behind them. Worf's comm badge sparked and died, killed by demonic energy. He fought on, his movements becoming more primal, more savage, drawing on ancestral Klingon fury that transcended training or technique. This was what his people had been before they reached for the stars. Warriors who survived because they refused to die, who won because surrender was inconceivable. 37 seconds remaining. The Doomslayer's hands moved across the final control sequences. The weapon was ready. All it needed was activation. But his HUD showed something that made him pause. The estimated blast radius was larger than calculated. Much larger. The dead zone wouldn't just encompass the immediate area. It would extend for 14 light years in every direction, disrupting subspace across dozens of inhabited systems. Acceptable collateral damage in his universe, where entire worlds were routinely sacrificed to stop Hell's advance. But here, in this universe where every world was populated, where civilizations existed in a web of interconnected systems, his finger hovered over the activation control. 23 seconds remaining. Behind him, Geordi saw the hesitation. What's wrong? The Slayer's holographic display showed the blast radius, the affected systems, the number of worlds that would lose warp capability. Hundreds of thousands of ships stranded. Millions of people cut off from the Federation's support network. Not fatal, but catastrophic for interstellar civilization. You're worried about the collateral damage, Geordi realized. You're actually hesitating because you don't want to hurt people who aren't demons. The Slayer's visor turned toward him. Confirmation. 14 seconds remaining. Then, trust me, Geordi said urgently. I've been running calculations while you worked. If we adjust the harmonic frequency by 0.73% and route the overflow through the deflector array, we can tighten the blast radius. Won't eliminate the dead zone, but we can contain it to 3 light years. Mostly empty space, a few trading outposts that can be evacuated later. Acceptable? The Slayer's hands moved before Geordi finished speaking, implementing the adjustments with perfect precision. The weapon's configuration shifted, power flows redirecting, the Argent accumulator's pulse pattern changing to accommodate the new parameters. 7 seconds remaining. All hands, brace for impact. Picard's voice echoed through every speaker on the Starbase and Enterprise. 3 seconds. The Doomslayer's finger found the activation control. 2 seconds. Across the Starbase, demons reached the final defensive line. Claws raised, teeth bared, victory within reach. 1 second. The Slayer activated the weapon. Reality screamed. The dimensional destabilizer fired, not as a beam or projectile, but as a wave of pure Argent energy propagating outward at faster-than-light speeds. It struck the 17 rifts simultaneously, not sealing them, but rewriting the fundamental rules that allowed them to exist. The dimensional barriers that Hell had torn through were forcibly reconstituted, reinforced, made impervious to further incursion. Every demon on the Starbase felt it, a pull, irresistible and absolute, yanking them back toward their home dimension. They tried to resist, claws digging into deck plating, physical forms anchoring to this reality through sheer determination. It didn't matter. The wave swept through them, not destroying their bodies, but severing their connection to this universe, pulling their essence back through dimensional barriers that snapped shut like jaws. The 31,000 demons vanished in the span of a single heartbeat. The rifts collapsed, not gradually, but instantaneously, the wounds in space-time healing so completely that sensors couldn't detect they'd ever existed. The Argent corruption that had been spreading through the Starbase's systems evaporated, the foreign energy unable to maintain coherence without a connection to its source dimension. Then came the wave's secondary effect. Subspace itself rippled, the dimensional destabilizer's energy propagating outward at exponential rates. Ships within 3 light years felt it. Warp drives stuttering, transporters failing, subspace communications cutting to static. The Enterprise managed to drop to impulse before her warp core could suffer cascade failure. Martok's bird of prey lost warp capability entirely, her crew working frantically to prevent core breach. And at the center of it all, the Starbase's reactor and the Enterprise's warp core both went dark. Their energy completely depleted, every urge of power consumed by the weapon's firing. Emergency lighting activated, battery backups kicked in, and in the sudden silence that follows extreme violence, survivors looked around in disbelief. The demons were gone, all of them. Not dead exactly, but banished, sent back to Hell and prevented from returning by barriers that would hold for centuries, possibly millennia. In engineering, the Doomslayer stood amid the smoking remains of his improvised weapon, his armor's power reserves at 14%, his systems barely functional. The Argent accumulator had shattered during the firing, its crystalline structure unable to withstand the energies channeled through it. The weapon was one use only. It had been enough. Geordi slumped against a console, exhausted beyond words. We did it. We actually did it. That was the most insane, dangerous, reckless thing I've ever been part of. And we did it. The Slayer's HUD showed 0 demonic signatures, 0 active rifts, 0 Argent corruption, mission accomplished. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, Brief, professional, already cataloging lessons learned for next time. Because there would be a next time. Hell never gave up, never stopped trying. But for now, in this universe, at this starbase, humanity and its allies had won. The cost was steep. 47 Starfleet personnel dead, 16 Klingons fallen in battle, 3 light-years of space rendered, temporarily inaccessible. A starbase that would need weeks of repairs. An entire sector traumatized by their first contact with literal demons. But everyone else lived. The invasion was stopped. Hell had been taught that this universe would not fall easily. On the bridge, Picard received damage reports from every section, casualty lists that would haunt him for years, and confirmation that the threat was eliminated. He closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself one moment of relief before the work of rebuilding began. "Mr. Worf," he said quietly, "please convey my compliments to Chancellor Martok and his warriors. Their courage saved countless lives today." "I will, Captain. And the Demon Slayer?" Picard looked at the engineering deck camera feeds, showing the armored warrior standing alone amid the wreckage of his improvised weapon. Tell him the Federation owes him a debt we can never fully repay. And tell him that despite our discomfort with his methods, we recognize that he saved us when we couldn't save ourselves. It was the closest thing to an apology the Federation would offer. And somehow, Picard suspected, it would be enough. 3 days after the battle, Starbase 375 limped along on emergency power while repair crews worked around the clock to restore critical systems. The dead had been honored. Starfleet personnel buried with full military honors. Klingon warriors sent to Sto-Vo-Kor with songs that echoed through the station's halls. The wounded filled the medical bays, Dr. Crusher and her staff performing miracles of triage and treatment. And in a secured observation room overlooking the repair efforts, representatives from across the Alpha Quadrant gathered to discuss what came next. Admiral Nechayev attended via holographic projection, her expression carefully neutral. Chancellor Martok sat at the table in person, still bearing bandages from his shoulder wound, but refusing to show weakness. Captain Picard represented Starfleet's tactical concerns, and standing apart from them all, near the viewport, the Doomslayer watched the cosmos with his characteristic silence. "Let's address the obvious," Nechayev began. "In 72 hours, this individual has killed approximately 500 demons, invaded another dimension, constructed an improvised weapon that rewrote fundamental laws of physics, and created a 3-light-year dead zone that's going to take decades to fully understand. The question before us is simple. What do we do about him?" "Do about him." Martok's tone carried warning. "He is not a problem to be solved, Admiral. He is a warrior who saved your starbase when your own forces could not." "I'm not denying his effectiveness, Chancellor. I'm questioning whether having someone this powerful operating without oversight represents an acceptable risk to galactic security." Picard interjected before the argument could escalate. "Admirals, Chancellor, I believe we're approaching this from the wrong angle. The Doomslayer didn't ask to come here. He was pulled through a rift created by Section 31's unauthorized experiments. Since arriving, every action he's taken has been in defense of innocent lives. He's demonstrated clear moral guidelines. Protect humans and their allies, eliminate demonic threats. That's not the profile of someone who'll turn on us without provocation." "Without provocation" being the key phrase, a new voice added. Commander Sisko appeared via holographic link from Deep Space Nine, his expression thoughtful. "Captain Picard is right that he's shown remarkable restraint given his capabilities. But we need to consider the long-term implications. What happens when he encounters species that don't fit his binary worldview? The Founders, for instance. Beings who exist outside conventional morality. Would he see them as threats to be eliminated?" The Doomslayer's visor turned toward Sisko's hologram. His interface activated, projecting an image that made several attendees shift uncomfortably. It showed a timeline, his timeline, of encounters with non-human entities in his universe, alien species, artificial intelligences, beings of pure energy. His HUD analysis appeared beside each. Threat assessment, demonic corruption scan, hostility evaluation. The message was clear. He'd encountered countless non-human entities across his war. He hadn't killed all of them, only the ones that registered as demonic or actively hostile. His targeting protocols were more sophisticated than anyone had given him credit for. Fascinating. Data observed, also attending remotely. His threat assessment algorithms account for gray area entities. He's capable of distinguishing between different and dangerous. That suggests a more nuanced worldview than his combat behavior would indicate. Doesn't change the fact that he operates outside any legal framework, Nechayev countered. No chain of command, no accountability, no oversight. That's fundamentally incompatible with how the Federation functions. Perhaps, Picard said carefully. That's exactly why he's effective. The Federation's strength lies in our diplomatic approach, our commitment to peaceful resolution. But we've just learned there are threats, like demons, that don't respond to diplomacy. Having someone who operates in that space, who handles the threats we're ill-equipped to face, might not be a weakness. It might be necessary. You're suggesting we sanction vigilantism. I'm suggesting we acknowledge reality, Admiral. This warrior exists. He will continue fighting demons wherever they appear, regardless of our approval. We can either work with him or work against him. Given what we've witnessed, I strongly recommend the former. Martok nodded agreement. The Klingon Empire has already made our position clear. We offer him alliance, resources, and support. No strings attached beyond the understanding that he fights for those who cannot fight for themselves. It's a warrior's compact, simple, honest, and far more reliable than your Federation bureaucracy. Before Nechayev could respond, Dr. Vasquez entered the conference room, her arm still in a regeneration cast. Admirals, Chancellor, Captain, I've completed my analysis of the dimensional rift and subsequent events. You need to see this. She activated a holographic display showing the rift's signature, then compared it to hundreds of similar readings from across Federation space over the past decade. These are subspace anomalies we've detected but couldn't explain. Low-level Argent energy signatures, barely detectable, dismissed as sensor glitches or natural phenomena. But after analyzing what happened here, I can confirm they're not natural. They're hell conducting reconnaissance, testing barriers between dimensions, looking for weak points. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How many? Sisko asked quietly. 473 confirmed readings. Possibly thousands more we missed because we didn't know what to look for. Admirals, Hell isn't just interested in random invasion. They've been systematically probing our reality for years, mapping it, planning. What happened here wasn't opportunistic. It was calculated. Picard felt cold certainty settle in his chest. They were going to invade eventually. Section 31's experiment just accelerated the timeline. Which means, Martok added grimly, that the Doomslayer's arrival wasn't coincidental. Hell sensed something coming through their dimension and tried to close the door. They failed, and now they know this universe has a defender who can hurt them. They'll be back, better prepared, more numerous. The Doomslayer's interface activated without prompting, showing a projection that made everyone in the room lean forward despite themselves. It displayed his analysis of Hell's force commitment during the invasion, less than 3% of their total military capacity by his estimation. The battle they'd barely survived represented a probing attack in Hell's assessment. A test of defenses, a measurement of resistance. When Hell came back in force, the numbers would be exponentially worse. Then we need to prepare, Nechayev said, her skepticism giving way to tactical pragmatism. Dr. Vasquez, I want every sensor in Federation space recalibrated to detect Argent energy signatures. If Hell is planning another incursion, we need advance warning. Commander Data, work with Starfleet engineering to analyze the Doom Slayer's weapon design. If we can replicate even a fraction of that technology. The Slayer's holographic display flashed red. A single word appeared. No. Absolutely not. He transmitted through the interface, the words appearing in Federation Standard. Everyone stared, his first actual communication beyond tactical projections. Your technology insufficient. Your understanding incomplete. Attempt to replicate will cause more rifts, more invasions, more deaths. With respect, Nechayev said carefully, how are we supposed to defend ourselves if you don't? The words appeared with absolute finality. I defend. You evacuate. You survive. You rebuild. Division of labor. You do what you excel at. I do what I excel at. Martok laughed, a genuine belly laugh that broke the tension. He has you there, Admiral. The Federation tries to be good at everything and ends up adequate at most things. Better to acknowledge strengths and weaknesses. Let the diplomat negotiate, the warrior fight, and stop trying to make everyone a generalist. The Chancellor has a point, Picard admitted. Our attempts to engage the demons conventionally resulted in 47 deaths. The Doom Slayer's approach resulted in total demon elimination with 0 collateral damage to civilians. The efficiency speaks for itself. Sisko studied the Slayer through the holographic connection. So, what are you proposing? You stay in Federation space, responding to demonic incursions as they occur? The Slayer's display showed a star map, not just Federation territory, but the entire Alpha and Beta quadrants. Highlighted points indicated detected Argent signatures, hundreds of them, scattered across multiple empires and neutral zones. The scope was staggering. You're saying Hell is probing everywhere, Sisko realized. Federation, Klingon, Romulan, Cardassian space, they're testing all of us. A single word appeared. Yes. Then this isn't a Federation problem, Martok said. This is a galactic threat that requires cooperation between powers who usually consider each other enemies. The Romulans won't take kindly to Starfleet warning them about dimensional demons. But they might listen to evidence, especially if it comes with a solution. You're suggesting we share this intelligence with the Romulan Star Empire? Nechayev's hologram looked pained. The Tal Shiar will have a field day with... The Tal Shiar will face the same demons we did if Hell decides to probe Romulan space. Picard interrupted. This transcends politics, Admiral. If Dr. Vasquez is correct, we're looking at a threat that makes the Borg seem manageable by comparison. The Doomslayer's interface showed comparison data that made the point brutally clear. The Borg, cybernetic collective, limited numbers, singular goal of assimilation, capable of being reasoned with on rare occasions. Hell, infinite armies, impossible to reason with, sole purpose the corruption and consumption of all reality, defeated only through absolute violence. Point taken, Nechayev said quietly. She was silent for a moment, then made a decision that must have cost her dearly. Very well. The Federation will not attempt to control, study, or replicate the Doomslayer's technology. We'll establish a communication protocol. When Argent signatures are detected, we alert him immediately and evacuate the affected area. He responds as he sees fit. We provide support where requested, but don't interfere with his operations. Essentially making him an independent operative with Federation support, Sisko observed. Do you have a better solution, Commander? No, Admiral. I don't. Martok stood, moving to stand beside the Slayer near the viewport. The Klingon Empire offers the same compact. Detect, alert, evacuate, support. And when you need warriors at your back, you need only ask. We'll come. The Slayer regarded the Klingon Chancellor, then extended his gauntleted hand. Martok gripped it firmly, warrior to warrior, sealing an alliance built not on treaties or political maneuvering, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Picard approached as well. The Federation may not understand war the way you do, but we understand the value of courage and sacrifice. When you need resources, medical supplies, transportation, intelligence, you'll have them. No questions asked. The Slayer's interface displayed a simple message. Acceptable. Then it's settled, Nechayev said. Commander Data, establish the alert protocol. Dr. Vasquez, continue your research on detecting Argent signatures. Captain Picard, you'll serve as the primary Starfleet liaison. And you, she addressed the Slayer directly, will have the resources of the Federation at your disposal. God help us all if this doesn't work. The meeting adjourned, representatives departing to brief their respective commands. Soon, only Picard, Martok, and the Doomslayer remained in the observation room. You know, Picard said quietly, watching repair crews work on the Starbase's exterior. There's something I've been curious about. You've killed thousands of demons, fought across dimensions, endured what would break anyone else. What keeps you going? What drives you forward when victory seems impossible? The Slayer was silent for a long moment. Then his interface activated one final time, showing an image from his universe. Earth, but not the thriving homeworld the Federation knew. This Earth was burning, cities reduced to rubble, humanity clinging to survival in scattered enclaves. And in those enclaves, civilians huddled together, parents protecting children, soldiers standing guard, scientists working to find solutions, doctors tending the wounded, people refusing to give up, refusing to let hell win, fighting with whatever they had, because surrender meant extinction. The image zoomed in on a specific scene, a little girl, no more than 6 years old, clutching a stuffed animal in a bunker. Terrified, but still alive, because someone had fought to keep her that way. Text appeared below the image. This, always this. Picard understood. The Doomslayer didn't fight for glory or honor or even justice in any abstract sense. He fought for moments like that. For children who deserve to grow up, for parents who deserve to see tomorrow, for humanity's right to exist without fear of being consumed by hell. It was the purest possible motivation, stripped of all complexity and reduced to its essential truth. Some things are worth fighting for, and some fights are worth any cost. Then fight on, Picard said simply. We'll make sure you have what you need. The Slayer's helmet dipped in acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, his weapon systems already running diagnostic checks, his motion tracker already scanning for threats. The battle was over, but the war continued. It always continued. Martok watched him go with an expression of profound respect. In Klingon mythology, we tell stories of warriors who fight even after death, whose spirits continue the battle in Sto-vo-kor. I always thought they were metaphors. Now I wonder if they were prophecies. If somewhere in the multiverse, warriors like him exist. Beings who fight not because they choose to, but because they must. Because if they stop, everything worth protecting will fall. Perhaps, Picard agreed. Or perhaps he's simply the best of us, someone who saw hell itself and decided that surrender was not an option. That courage, that determination, that absolute refusal to let evil win. Maybe that's what heroism looks like when stripped of all pretense. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the cosmos turn, aware that their universe had fundamentally changed. Hell knew they existed now. More invasions would come, more battles would be fought. But for the first time since the Borg, the Federation and its allies had found something that could match an existential threat with equal force. One warrior, one mission, one simple truth: hell shall not pass. In his quarters aboard the Enterprise, Data compiled his report on the events at Starbase 375. His positronic brain processed terabytes of data, combat footage, energy readings, casualty reports, strategic assessments. But as he reached the conclusion, he found himself struggling with something he rarely experienced: uncertainty about how to quantify what he'd witnessed. Finally, he settled on a simple statement that captured the essence of the situation. The Doomslayer represents a paradigm the Federation has no framework for, a being whose existence is defined entirely by one purpose, executed with perfect efficiency. He is neither ally nor asset, neither tool nor threat. He simply is. And in a universe where hell exists, perhaps that's exactly what we need. Someone who fights not for politics or philosophy, but because the alternative is unacceptable. His presence changes nothing about who we are, but it changes everything about what we can survive. The report was filed, distributed to Starfleet Command, and classified at the highest levels. But word spread anyway. Through whispered conversations, through Klingon battle songs, through Romulan intelligence reports. The legend grew. There's a warrior in the Federation, covered in ancient armor, armed with weapons beyond comprehension, silent as death itself. He appeared from another universe, killed 500 demons, invaded hell and lived, built a weapon that sealed dimensional rifts across 3 light years. And he's still out there, watching, waiting, ready to fight when hell comes. Calling again? Some called him a guardian. Others called him a weapon. The Klingons called him a legend. The Federation called him an asset. He called himself nothing at all. He was the Doomslayer. And in a universe of exploration, diplomacy, and hope for peaceful coexistence, he remained what he'd always been. The one who fights so others don't have to. And somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, hell remembered him and was afraid. The multiverse had shifted, and those who paid attention knew it. In the weeks following the Starbase 375 incident, Starfleet began detecting Argent signatures with alarming frequency. Most were minor, dimensional weak points that dissipated naturally. But 3 required intervention. 3 times, the Doomslayer materialized on station, eliminated the threat with brutal efficiency, and departed without ceremony. The casualties from those incursions: 0 Federation personnel, hundreds of demons. The pattern established itself quickly. Hell would probe. Starfleet would detect and evacuate. The Slayer would respond. Reality would be preserved. The Klingons composed songs about him: the Demon's End, the Silent Warrior, he who walks in hell. Chancellor Martok personally inducted him into the Order of the Batleth, an honor typically reserved for Klingons who'd achieved legendary status. The Slayer didn't attend the ceremony, but Martok didn't take offense. True warriors needed no recognition beyond the victory itself. The Romulans, predictably, attempted to capture him for study. The operation lasted exactly 4 minutes before the Tal Shiar team retreated in disarray, their equipment destroyed and their operative severely traumatized. The Romulan Senate officially declared him a neutral entity not subject to Imperial jurisdiction. diplomatic language for "We tried and failed spectacularly, so we're pretending it was our choice." Dr. Vasquez continued her research into dimensional mechanics, developing early warning systems that could detect Argent energy signatures days before rifts formed. Her work earned her the Daystrom Prize and permanent assignment to Starfleet's new Dimensional Threat Assessment Division. In her acceptance speech, she made sure to note that all her research would have been meaningless without the warrior who showed us that some threats require not study, but action. Section 31 attempted to reclaim jurisdiction exactly once. The details remain classified, but witnesses reported seeing the Slayer walk into their secret facility and walk out 17 minutes later carrying a hard drive containing every Section 31 file on dimensional research. The organization filed no official complaint. They knew when they'd lost. But perhaps the most significant change occurred not in policy or technology, but in philosophy. The Federation had built its entire civilization on the belief that understanding and diplomacy could solve any problem, that violence was always a failure of imagination. The demons forced them to confront a harder truth. Some evils exist beyond reason. Some threats require warriors willing to descend into darkness so others can live in light. It was an uncomfortable realization for a culture of explorers and peacemakers. But it was necessary. Captain Picard found himself thinking about this late one night, staring at sensor logs showing the Slayer's current location, somewhere in the Gamma Quadrant, responding to an Argent signature near Dominion space. The man fought alone, always alone, bearing a burden no one else could share. "Captain?" Worf's voice came from the ready room doorway. "You sent for me?" "Yes, Mr. Worf. I've been reviewing reports on the Dimensional Threat Assessment Protocols. Your recommendation that we establish a rapid response fleet specifically trained to support the Doomslayer's operations. I'm approving it." Worf's expression showed surprise and approval. "Captain, the Admiralty will resist. They see him as a temporary solution to a temporary problem." "Then they're not paying attention. Hell doesn't give up, Mr. Worf. It will keep trying, keep probing, keep searching for ways into our universe. And when it finds them, we need to be ready, not to fight alone, but to support the one who can." "A warrior's wisdom, Captain. I am pleased you understand." Picard smiled faintly. "I'm learning, Mr. Worf. Slowly, perhaps, but I'm learning that the universe is more complicated than Academy philosophy suggested. Sometimes we need diplomats. Sometimes we need warriors. And sometimes we need someone who exists outside both categories. Someone who fights not for politics or glory, but because it's right." Somewhere in the Gamma Quadrant, the Doomslayer stood alone in a corridor filled with demon corpses, his armor steaming, his weapons depleted, his body exhausted. His HUD showed 0 remaining threats, the rift sealed, the civilians safe. Mission accomplished. He reloaded his weapons, checked his Argent reserves, and consulted his star map. 3 more Argent signatures detected in the Alpha Quadrant, 2 in the Beta Quadrant, 1 near Klingon space that would require immediate attention. No rest, no respite. Just the next mission, and the mission after that, and all the missions that would follow until Hell finally learned that this universe would not fall. His helmet's HUD flickered, displaying a message from Starfleet. "Command. Coordinates for the next detection, estimated demon count, evacuation status." Everything he needed to plan his response. He acknowledged the transmission and began moving toward the nearest transport point. The Federation's ships would carry him where he needed to go. Klingon warriors would stand ready to support if needed. The galaxy's defenders were learning to work with him, adapting their tactics to accommodate his methods. It wasn't the alliance he'd had in his universe. Those allies had all fallen, consumed by Hell's infinite hunger. but it was something. People who recognized the threat, who understood the stakes, who were willing to stand with him even if they couldn't stand beside him. In the darkness between stars, the Doomslayer continued his eternal war. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he didn't fight entirely alone. The multiverse was infinite, filled with wonders and horrors beyond counting. But in this small corner of reality, in this particular universe of explorers and dreamers, one truth had been established. Hell shall not pass, not while one warrior stands between the darkness and the light, not while the Doomslayer fights on. And fight on he would, until hell itself fell silent and the demons learned to fear the dark.